Heard, it's finally here. You loved who was the strongest Space Marine from each legion, and today we're going absolutely balls to the walls because now we're doing it for every single Loyalist chapter you voted for. We're talking Blood Angels, Space Wolves, Ultramarines, Raven Guard, Black Templars, Flesh Terrors, Dark Angels, and so many more. We're only doing Loyalist chapters this time around, but following this video will be a full version dedicated to Chaos. Because once we've crowned the strongest Marine from each chapter in Warband, we'll take every single champion we picked in both videos and finally answer the question that haunts my wet dreams: who is the single strongest Space Marine in the current era of Warhammer 40K? But hold on, let's not get too excited. We've got some ground rules to cover before jumping into this. Just a few though. First, we're only including Space Marines who are still considered human. That means Marines that are Psychers, Warp-touched, Gene-enhanced, or even those temporarily possessed by demonic power are fair game. However, we won't be counting full-on demons, demon princes, dreadnoughts, or any other permanent chaos abominations. Additionally, to keep things consistent, we'll also be looking at the strongest version of each of these Marines. So Mephiston after overcoming the Black Rage, or Dante after crossing the Rubicon. Finally, this is focused on the current 40k timeline, so no 30k era Space Marines. Unless of course they actually survived the last 10,000 years and are still active in the present setting. So with the ground rules laid out, let's take a look at the chapters we'll be diving into today. There are 21 in total. The Dark Angels, the White Scars, the Space Wolves, the Imperial Fists, the Blood Angels, the Iron Hands, the Ultramarines, the Salamanders, the Raven Guard, the Blood Ravens, the Flesh Terrors, the Black Templars, the Carcharodons or the Space Sharks, the Minotaurs, the Lamenters, the Exorcists, the Raptors, the Howling Griffins, the Death Watch, the Crimson Fists, and the Grey Knights. Oh boy, I'm out of breath. Someone call an ambulance.
But not for me!
I know some of your favorites didn't make the cut, but remember, I'm a democratic cow, not some tyrant from Terra. You guys voted for these chapters, and so they will be the ones we'll be scaling today. If you would like to see a part 2 with even more Loyalist chapters, this video would have to reach over 1,000 likes and over 250 comments within the first week. I know it's a tough task, but if you want to see more Loyalist chapters represented, hit that like button and comment below who you think is the single strongest Space Marine in 40k. But without further delay, let's jump straight into the cow hole. Heard, this is gonna be a really long video, and I suggest grabbing a snack. Maybe some pizza rolls with a side of ranch, and maybe, just maybe, a massive whiskey beverage. Wait, I mean milk. Yes, milk. Keep it wholesome, people. Keep it wholesome. We're starting with the first founding chapters, the original Loyalist legions, beginning as always with the Dark Angels, the Unforgiven. It's time to power scale. The Dark Angels are basically knights in space, but in 40k, these knights have gotten real secretive and real obsessed. Their entire existence now revolves around hunting down the traitors from within their 30k era ranks, known as the Fallen. For this reason, they've long carried the title of the Unforgiven, a name that defines both their legacy and their sins. Now, since we're looking specifically at the Dark Angels chapter, the Fallen won't be included here. They'll be covered in the Chaos Warbands video, even if most of them are technically just renegades. This also includes the Risen, and I know they're not traitors, but for the sake of consistency, I'm saving them for the Chaos side too. Cypher, Kai, and the other Fallen will just have to wait. So, for the Dark Angels chapter, we've only got 3 serious contenders: Belial, Grand Master of the Deathwing, Azrael, Supreme Chapter Master of the Dark Angels, and Ezekiel, Chief Librarian of the Dark Angels. And before anyone yells at me in the comments, no, Asmodai, Master Interrogator Chaplain, didn't make the cut. Sorry, Herd, but compared to the others I've selected, his actual feats of martial prowess just simply don't stack up. He's still getting an honorable mention for being the galaxy's grumpiest chaplain with a torture stick. We'll now go through each candidate, discuss who they are and their greatest feats, and then after reviewing all of them, we'll compare those feats to determine the most powerful Space Marine from that chapter. And we're starting things off with Belial, Master of the Deathwing. Belial was raised in the knightly society of the Ebon Star, where duty and honor defined his life. Even as a child, he proved exceptional. At only 11, he held his own against a Dark Angel's chaplain, earning his place as an aspirant. Rising through the ranks as a perfectionist commander, Belial eventually earned the title of Master of the Deathwing after slaying a Chaos Lord of Khorne in single combat. But what feats does Belial have? Well, unfortunately, Belial is all talk, which is pretty sad for someone hyped as one of the greatest duelists in the Dark Angels chapter. Sure, he stepped into the ring with some of the bigger names in the setting, like Ghazghkull Thraka and even the Demon Primarch Angron, but in both cases, he got absolutely smacked around. His Heavenfall blade sounds impressive, but it hasn't exactly helped him out when it really mattered. Outside of those big fights, yeah, he's slain plenty of demons, Chaos Marines, and an unnamed Chaos Lord of Khorne, but on this channel, we measure champions by their major duels and feats. And by that standard, Belial looks a lot less like the chapter's greatest warrior and a lot more like a guy living on borrowed hype. Azrael is next, and he is the current Supreme Grand Master of the Dark Angels and the Keeper of the Truth, leading the entire network of Unforgiven successor chapters. Azrael is the beating heart of the Dark Angels legacy and the one man trusted to guard their most damning truths. Now for his feats, he is kinda similar to Belial. He is less about coming out ahead and more about his sheer survivability. He's constantly thrown against the galaxy's biggest monsters, and while he rarely comes out on top, he somehow survives every time. He dueled the demon prince Jendor Scrivok, holding his own long enough for Ezekiel to banish the beast. He faced Karn the Betrayer, where they fought evenly for a time, but ultimately, he had to retreat rather than suffer an inevitable defeat. Most recently, in the Arc of Omens, he crossed blades with Vashtor the Archifane, even landing a wounding strike before the battle would have surely ended him if not for Bellacor's sudden intervention. Azrael may not rack up decisive kills, but his true feat is survival, standing unbroken against Chaos Champions and Demon Lords who should have destroyed him. Finally, we come to our third candidate, Ezekiel, Chief Librarian of the Dark Angels. Ezekiel rose through the brutal trials of the Dark Angels Librarium to become Chief Librarian of the chapter. Though frail in body, his psychic power and indomitable will have made him one of the most feared psychers in the Imperium. As Chief Librarian, Ezekiel stands as both spiritual enforcer of loyalty within the chapter and a weapon against the horrors of the warp. So what are Ezekiel's greatest feats? Ezekiel's career is marked by terrifying psychic might and iron willpower. He has banished powerful demons in direct combat, including holding back the entity that once robbed him of his foresight. At the Battle for Solarian Gate, he shattered Wog Grolblek with a devastating psychic assault, breaking the Orc Horde and slaying their warboss. His psychic dominance was so absolute that the previous Grandmaster of Librarians, Dan Theum, immediately stepped down out of respect for his prowess. During the Arc of Omens, Ezekiel coordinated the defense of the Rock and later led the surviving Librarians in a desperate counter-assault against Vashtor's demonic legions on Wormwood, holding the line when defeat was certain. So let's compare each of these three lads' greatest feats. We can first start by eliminating Belial. I know guys, he's said to be one of the baddest motherfuckers, but he has virtually no great feats outside of getting thrashed by demon primarchs and large orc boys. He does beat a unnamed Chaos Lord, but Chaos Lords only scale slightly above normal Chaos Marines. So unfortunately, we can easily eliminate Belial. So it's down to Azrael and Ezekiel. One is a powerful psyker, and one is a chapter master. Oddly enough, neither of them have really any great victories. Ezekiel was able to restrain an unknown powerful demon and slew an orc boss, but it seems that Ezekiel's greatest power is not in direct combat, but in foresight and mental infiltration. On the other side, Azrael is kinda in the same boat. He has fought 3 bosses: Demon Prince Jendor Scrivok, Karn the Betrayer, and Vastor the Archiphane, and he hasn't defeated any of them. But he did survive each encounter. I feel like the best way to look at this is specifically looking at Karn the Betrayer and his power level, as Azrael duels him for the longest time and matched him evenly, although he would have inevitably lost. We will eventually cover Karn the Betrayer in the follow-up video, but for right now, let's do a quick dissection into Karn the Betrayer, who is the champion of Khorne. He has enhanced strength, speed, agility, and prowess due to the buffs of Khorne, and in my opinion, is one of the strongest duelists in the current setting. His greatest feats in 40k include killing various champions, including Saint Celestine herself, Fleetmaster, Trincus Abkinus, and Chaos Champion of Slaanesh, Zargan Iron Fist. All these opponents are pretty gosh darn strong, which means Azrael is either in the same league or just above them. With these facts, I believe that Azrael is the champion of the Dark Angels chapter. Him standing toe-to-toe against Karn for some time easily puts him above the other 2 candidates. Little side tangent before moving on, I would absolutely love to power scale Saint Celestine in a future video, since she's a pretty controversial figure and I don't even know how powerful she truly is. But with that said, let's move on to the Lightning McQueen boys, the White Scars. Masters of lightning-fast assaults and unparalleled mobility, the White Scars excel in hit-and-run tactics, often overwhelming enemies before they even know what hit them. Hailing from the world of Jagoris, they combined nomadic warrior traditions with the precision of a highly disciplined legion. As one of the fringe main chapters, the White Scars don't get a ton of detailed lore. So while there are many intriguing characters, only a few have enough feats to consider here. I've included 3 candidates here purely because they're interesting characters, but one of them easily stands out among the rest. Our 3 candidates are Jubal Khan, Chapter Master of the White Scars, Korsaro Khan, Master of the Hunt and Captain of the Third Brotherhood, and Jaghatai Khan, Master of Blades and the Captain of the Fourth Brotherhood. We'll start with Jubal Khan. And it's not the Jubal Khan from the Horus Heresy, this is a new Jubal Khan because GW has no idea how to come up with OG names. Will he be as powerful as the OG Jubal Khan? We shall see. Also, before moving on, the White Scars do have supposedly a legendary Stormseer, Saghari, but he literally has no feats at all, so I didn't include him. Jubal Khan became Chapter Master after the previous Great Khan disappeared during a fight against the Dark Elder in 943 M41. To claim his title, Jubal survived the mysterious trials set by the Stormseers at the Kumkarta Mountains, emerging as the sole victor, a feat whose details are never revealed. Despite his later physical confinement due to injuries, Jubal remains the strategic mind of the White Scars, issuing commands across the segmentum and guiding the chapter's actions through his closest advisors. So what are Jubal Khan's feats? Well, he's the Chapter Master of the White Scars, and that's pretty much about it. Sure, he led lightning-fast raids against traitors and orcs, orchestrated battles across Armageddon, and even took on the Red Corsairs, but in the end, he got captured, tortured, and now spends his days as a physically broken vegetable, kept alive only in a life support cradle.
That's rough, buddy.
I included Jubal Khan not because he's some unstoppable legend, but to show that even well-known popular characters in 40k often have next to no major feats. We'll see the same issue again throughout the video, and I'm sure it'll shock a few faces along the way. This is one of the biggest issues with 40k lore in general, and unlike 30k, where authors could kill off characters and truly escalate the stakes, 40k keeps Marines alive for tabletop purposes. Characters like Karn or Lucius can't die permanently, which creates a weird ceiling for power scaling and makes actual progression in feats kinda complicated. Next we have is Korsaro Khan, and he's a big step up from Mr. Jubal Khan. Corsaro Khan, the 51st Master of the Hunt and the captain of the White Scar's 3rd Company, is the ultimate embodiment of his chapter's lightning-fast tactics and nomadic warrior culture. Every 25 years, at the height of the Rites of Howling, the Master of the Hunt is dispatched to seek out foes who have survived previous encounters with the White Scars. Over his career, Corsaro has completed nearly 20 such hunts, claiming legendary enemies like the Demon Prince Kurnax Voldurus and Eldar Pirate Lord Var Eliel, with many of his prey's severed heads displayed as a warning along the White Scar's fortress monastery. His greatest feats, outside of killing a Demon Prince and an Eldar Pirate Lord, are slaying a Tyranid Hive Tyrant, several Dark Eldar Archons, defeating Shadow Sun, the legendary Tau commander, but I will admit he didn't kill her, and he also slew so many Necrons that their overlord was impressed and let him leave. He did lose to Demon Prince Doomrider, but after being captured in a moment of distraction, he crushed the Demon Prince's skull in. Corsaro Khan is a literal huge step up from the no feats of Jubal Khan. Finally, our 3rd and final candidate is Jaghatai Khan, Master of the Blades. Jaghatai Khan is commander of the White Scar's 4th Brotherhood and is a fierce warrior known for his precision and tactical skill. Promoted shortly before 925 M41, he earned his position after proving himself against the Red Corsairs of the Dyat system. During the Battle of Kardrim, Jaghatai led his company against both Orcs and Necrons. His greatest feat came when he personally slew the Orc war boss Skull Krumpa and destroyed a great number of Necron forces caught in a trap. While undeniably impressive, it pales in comparison to Corsaro Khan. So I feel like it's pretty obvious who is the greatest Space Marine from the White Scars chapter. It's easily Corsaro Khan, who has beaten Demon Princes, Tyranid Hive Tyrants, and a host of other galaxy-level threats. He is without a doubt one of the strongest Space Marines in the current setting in general, and so is obviously the White Scars champion. Let's move on to the Space Wolves. The Space Wolves, originally the 6th Legion, are fierce warriors hailing from the icy death world of Fenris. Renowned for their savagery in battle, berserker fury, and mastery of close combat, they combine their feral instincts of their home world with the disciplined tactics of the Adeptus Astartes. Their culture, steeped in the legends of Fenris and the tales of their Primarch, Leman Russ, makes them unique among the chapters, part warrior clan and part furry. Unlike their 30k counterparts, who are notorious for arrogance, pride, and just being massive pricks, the 40k Space Wolves have evolved into champions of the people. They actively protect the small folk across the Imperium's decaying worlds, acting as both defenders and symbols of hope. While their battle prowess remains unmatched, their reputation balances ferocity with honor, loyalty, and a genuine concern for those they serve. But who is their most powerful Marine? Well, you know how we discussed in the previous video that the 30k Space Wolves don't have a ton of feats? Well, the situation is completely the opposite here. The Space Wolves in 40k have some insanely busted characters. We have several Marines who have slain Demon Princes, ripped their way out of giant stomachs, and otherwise been absolute monsters. But we can't include all of them. So in this video, we are going with 4 candidates. Nael Stormcaller, Chief Ruin Priest, Ragnar Blackmane, Wolf Lord of the Blackmane's Great Company, Eric Morkai, Wolf Lord of the Sons of Morkai Great Company, and Logan Grimnar, the Old Wolf, Chapter Master of the Space Wolves. Let's start with Nael Stormcaller, whose saga began amidst the frozen oceans of Fenris. As a young warrior, he fought with unmatched ferocity during his tribe's naval battles, leaping across enemy ships and laying waste to entire decks, earning the attention of the Space Wolves Rune Priest Heimdall, who rescued him from near death and trained him in the ways of psychic warfare. His greatest feat is obliterating a bloodthirster and unleashing a psychic ice storm that destroyed an entire Chaos army, which I have to admit is pretty goddamn impressive.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Nael also seems to have an element of foresight, which allowed him to slightly see Guilliman's arrival in Fenris with the Primaris reinforcements. After him is Ragnar Blackmane, Wolf Lord of the Blackmanes. Ragnar Blackmane, born Ragnar Thunderfist of the Thunderfist tribe on Fenris, is the youngest and most hot-blooded of the Space Wolves Wolf Lords. Marked by ferocity from the start, he slew a black-maned Fenrisian wolf during his trials and rose swiftly through the chapter's ranks. As a Bloodclaw, Ragnar's renown grew after slaying an Orc Psyker warboss, battling Gene Stealers aboard a Space Hulk, and confronting the demon Botulaz. Skipping the Grey Hunter's rank entirely, he became a member of the Wolf Guard after killing Orc Warlord Borzag Khan and his reunite. When his Wolf Lord, Beric Thunderfist, fell, Ragnar avenged him and inherited his great company, becoming the youngest Wolf Lord in Space Wolf history. But now we get to his greatest feats in the current setting, which include defeating the Thousand Sun sorcerer Maddox multiple times, ultimately killing him with the Spear of Russ. Ragnar has also slain countless champions in single combat, including Orc Warlords, Chaos Champions, and Dark Angel rivals. But most famously, Ragnar fought and decapitated Ghazghkull Thraka, though he was gravely wounded in the process and had to cross the Rubicon Primaris to survive. Despite his victory, Ghazghkull Thraka returned somehow? I really have no idea how that happened, but that's kinda orcs for you. So overall, Ragnar Blackmane has some outstanding feats. Our third candidate is Eric Morkai, who is the Wolf Lord of the Sons of Morkai. Even among the Space Wolves, Eric is infamous for his ruthless methods and icy demeanor. Where his brothers boast or laugh, he strikes swiftly, decisively, and without mercy. His great company mirrors his nature, filled with wolf scouts and specialists in stealth, ambush, and silent kills. So what are this wolf guy's greatest feats? I feel like I've said wolf like a million times since I've started this section, and it's starting to drive me nuts. What are we doing, Black Library? What are we doing? But back to Eric Morkai. This guy's got some pretty crazy feats, I won't lie. Starting, this dude literally flung himself off a cliff alongside an Elder Archon, and he survived the fall just to prove a point.
Oh my god, he's so goddamn cool!
Which I must admit is pretty goddamn badass. He also literally defeated a Slaaneshi demon prince, which saved over 1 billion Imperial citizens from certain damnation. Wow, Eric Morkai has some serious feats. And now we finally get to our fourth candidate, the Big Papa himself, Logan Grimnar, the Old Wolf and the chapter master of the Space Wolves. Let me just start by saying Logan Grimnar is built different, guys. He is without a doubt one of the most iconic chapter masters in all of 40k. And there's a reason for that. Let me just introduce him real quick and then we'll get to his outstanding feats. Born into the Ironblood tribe of Fenris, Logan Grimnar's ferocity and will caught Ulrich the Slayer's eye early on. In his trial of Morkai, he slew the Ice Troll Frostblood with only a broken bone, foreshadowing the savagery that defined him. Rising swiftly through the ranks, he became the Wolf Guard to Asvold Stormrack, later inheriting his great company. Years later, by unanimous support, Logan was elevated to Great Wolf and High King of Fenris. His leadership and martial prowess cementing him as one of the Imperium's greatest commanders and warriors. So what are the Big Papa Wolf's biggest feats? During the Months of Shame, he slew Grandmaster Joros of the Grey Knights, a staggering achievement considering that the Grey Knights are insanely powerful Space Marines designed to slay demons, not fall to the blades of fellow Space Marines. Later in the First War for Armageddon, Grimnar held off the demon Primarch Angron long enough for the Grey Knights to complete the ritual that banished him. And even crazier, during the Siege of Fenris, Logan fought Magnus the Red himself and actually managed to wound him, a feat most Astartes couldn't even dream of attempting. He also slaughtered High Lord Inquisitor Gesme Geisneros, who was a powerful psyker aboard the Inquisition flagship Coral's Hope, avenging the betrayal of his chapter. Beyond these headline feats, Logan is notable for his sheer physicality, being able to run in Terminator plate, something that should be impossible given the armor's immense weight, and for resisting the corruptive nature of his infamous weapon, the Axe of Morkai. Speaking of the Axe of Morkai, I feel like it deserves a special mention. Unlike relics such as Azrael's Sword of Secrets or Corsaro Khan's Moonfang, Logan's weapon is not just a ceremonial blade or a chapter heirloom, it is a warp-empowered Kornite artifact. a weapon that drinks the souls of demons and strikes with the powers far beyond a normal weapon. The axe itself is the only reason he could wound Magnus the Red at all because of the axe's nature. I believe at this point during the battle, Magnus is said to be warded against any weapon the Imperium possesses, which essentially means that the Axe of Mordecai was the only thing able to break his warding spell. But still, the fact that he was able to land a blow in the first place speaks volumes about his sheer skill and battlefield prowess. I feel like I do have to mention that Logan Grimnar is destined to die to Gazgul Mag-Urak Thraka. Say that 5 times fast, guys. Gazgul Mag-Urak Thraka. I can't do it. I simply can't do it. But we all know that 40k will never kill off such a beloved character. Theoretically though, if this prophecy is true, this would scale him far below Gazgul Thraka, but I'm not going to be playing the theoretical game with Logan Grimnar, simply because we don't actually know how this duel would unfold. Logan could die by slipping on a rock, or some other stupid accident, which wouldn't actually reflect his prowess. For that reason alone, we won't be taking this prophecy into account when evaluating his true power. So it's time to crown the Space Wolves champion. We have 4 great candidates. Make your bets, people, make your bets. We have now Stormcaller, whose greatest feat was slaying a greater demon of Khorne, Ragnar Blackmane, whose greatest feat was decapitating Gazgul Thraka and defeating several other orc bosses. We have Eric Morkai, who slew a greater demon of Slaanesh, and Logan Grimnar, who fought 2 demon Primarchs and even managed to wound one. I mean, god damn, this chapter is just insanely on another level, it's no joke. Like, if this was any other chapter, we would be having a really hard debate, but compared to the other 2, obviously a demon Primarch scales further than a greater demon, and Gazgul Thraka is a monster himself, having defeated multiple high-level opponents too. It's simply crazy that Eric Morkai and now Stormcaller are being eliminated, even though they have slain greater demons of chaos, which is in my opinion the marking of one of the strongest Marines in 40k. Space Wolf fans, you guys are absolutely feasting. You have multiple Space Marines who are absolutely legends, and in my mind, some of the strongest characters in 40k. But still, unfortunately, we have to eliminate Eric Morkai and now Stormcaller. So it's really between Ragnar Blackmane and Logan Grimnar. And come on guys, we all know who takes the crown here. The undisputed champion of the Space Wolves chapter is Logan Grimnar, the Old Wolf. Pretty easy pick. He's faced 2 demon Primarchs, slain a Grey Knight, Grand Master, and stands as one of the greatest Space Marines in the current setting. Hands down. Just think about it guys, Magnus the Red can manipulate reality, atomize Primarchs, throw tanks around, Terminators, throw fleets into orbit. He is a monster, and still Logan Grimnar was able to blitz him and wound him. That is one of the best feats a Space Marine has ever done in the current setting. With all that said though, Ragnar Blackmane is such a fan favorite and iconic character that, similar to my last video, I'll be including him in the next video moving forward. So when I finally do the video, who is the single strongest Space Marine in the 40k setting, Ragnar Blackmane and Logan Grimnar will be present representing the Space Wolves. So no, this isn't the last time you'll see Ragnar, but Logan Grimnar unsurprisingly claims the title of the champion of the Space Wolves chapter. It's now time to dive into my favorite autistic Lego boys next, the Imperial Fists. The Imperial Fists are the stalwart bastions of the Imperium, famed for their unbreakable discipline, unmatched siegecraft, and unwavering loyalty. Masters of fortification and defense, the chapter has held the walls of humanity's most critical worlds against countless foes, from orcs to Eldar to traitor legions, proving time and again that they are the Emperor's hammer and shield. Where other chapters rely on flashy tactics or wild heroics, the Imperial Fists exemplify patience, strategy, and sheer endurance, often winning wars before their enemies even realize the fight has begun. Their reputation for stoicism and courage is matched only by their pride, and few can withstand the crushing might of a fist in full battle array. Although the 30k era Imperial Fist produced some of the galaxy's greatest warriors, legends like Sigismund, whom we named the strongest marine of the Heresy era, Fafnir Ran, Camden Diaz, Alexis Polux, and countless others, the chapter's prominence has waned in the current era. In fact, their successor chapters have largely eclipsed them in fame and relevance, leaving Dorne's direct sons a shadow of their former glory. So who are the candidates for the strongest Space Marine of the modern Imperial Fist? Well, there are only 3, and truth be told, they're not exactly awe-inspiring. At least, not all of them. The contenders are Gregor Dician, Chapter Master of the Imperial Fist, Tor Garadon, Captain of the 3rd Company, and Darneth Lysander, First Captain of the 1st Company. One of them stands head and shoulders above the rest, which of course is exactly why we're making this video. We'll start with Gregor Dician, the current Chapter Master of the Imperial Fist, who assumed command after his predecessor, Vorn Hagen, fell defending Terra in the chaotic aftermath of the Great Rift. Before rising to the highest rank, Dician led the 7th Company on a punishing penance crusade to the Rift's edge, battling demonic corruption, insurrections, and Chaos Space Marines. Despite the trials, he returned to Terra as a proven leader and was chosen to take the mantle of Chapter Master. That said, if you check his lexicon page, it's barely longer than an entry for a random hobo in a hive city. For someone leading the Imperial Fist in the current setting, that's not exactly great. Legit no feats, just a mere footnote for a Chapter Master is fucking insane. Next, we have Darneth Lysander, who was recruited from Holy Terra after surviving a 13-year pilgrimage which brought him to the attention of the Imperial Fist chaplain, Shadowmasters. Lysander distinguished himself in countless campaigns, from his early battles against the Iron Warriors to leading drop pod assaults that turned the tide of sieges such as Hadrake Tor. He became first captain of the 1st Company, mastering the tactic of teleporting Terminator squads into enemy positions, and survived being trapped in chaos space for over a millennium before returning to exact vengeance on the Iron Warriors. Lysander has repeatedly demonstrated tactical brilliance and personal valor, most notably in campaigns against the Alpha Legion, Emperor's Children, and Iron Warriors. He is famed for his Terminator armor, the mighty Fist of Dorne, and his Storm Shield, which he wields in countless battles for the honor and survival of the Imperial Fist. Lysander's most remarkable feat came when he was captured by the Iron Warriors in chaos-held space. Stripped of weapons and armor, he escaped with a handful of survivors, finding his way to freedom. In recent lore that came from his new model, we can add that he slew an orc warboss in single combat. Our last candidate is Tor Garadon, whose stubborn and straightforward nature made him a challenging son to his wealthy family. He earned distinction during the Nossphere planet strike, taking command of 6 surviving battle brothers after his captain's death. Garadon later proved his leadership during the invasion of Tal Dorn, stepping up after Julius Vogan's death, surviving grievous injuries and coordinating with Ultramarine reinforcements to turn the tide of battle. As captain of the 3rd Company, Tor Garadon has led it through campaigns against the Tyranids, the 13th Black Crusade, and chaos incursions aboard the Phalanx. During the Age of the Dark Imperium, he deployed the Imperial Fist to stabilize Terra, crossed the Rubicon Primaris, and led operations against Tyranids and the Bastor subsector. Known for his tactical brilliance and resilience under fire, Garadon remains one of the last surviving Fists from before the Great Rift. So now, let's name the strongest Space Marine from the Imperial Fist chapter. And honestly, it's a bit of a sad sight. Let's see what each of these candidates brings to the table. Current Chapter Master Gregor Dician earned his rank after surviving a brutal penance crusade at the edge of the Great Rift. He's fought demons, Chaos Marines, and rebel-ridden worlds, proving himself a stalwart defender of Terra. He's not exactly a flashy single-handed hero, but a rock-solid leader with decades of disciplined campaigns under his belt. Tor Garadon is a tactical mastermind and survivor, as he made his name rebuilding the 3rd Company after its near annihilation, and leading them through countless campaigns. He's been shown capable of turning dire situations into victories, and has forged alliances with some of the Imperium's most famous heroes. And then there's Lysander. His greatest combat feat is defeating an orc warboss in single combat. But outside of this, he does have an epic feat that makes you stand up and go, holy fucking shit. He He was captured by the Iron Warriors deep in chaos-held space, pretty much stripped naked, and he still fought his way back to freedom. So while Decian and Torgaradon have impressive records and loyal leadership, the crown for sheer and cinematic badassery goes to Darneth Lysander. It's a bittersweet reminder, the Imperial Fist's greatest champions may still exist, but they're fighting in the shadows, and we're left here mourning the days when Dorne's sons were the headline act. Sigismund would cook these guys for breakfast. If you guys remember, his greatest feats included wounding a demon Primarch Fulgrim, defeating Karn in single combat, and dueling 200 straight Black Templars, which included a Contemptor Dreadnought. Yeah, the 40k Imperial Fist kinda suck ass.
Well, this sucks.
Next up, we arrive at the Sons of Sanguinius, the Blood Angels, who are noble, artistic, and tragically cursed. Known for their grace in battle and their angelic appearance, they are also haunted by the Red Thirst and the Black Rage, gene flaws that drive them into uncontrollable bloodlust or visions of their Primarch's death. Unlike the Imperial Fists, who have very few standout champions, the Blood Angels are absolutely overflowing with heavy hitters. In fact, much like the Space Wolves, their roster is stacked with some of the hardest hitting Marines in the current setting, each one dripping with lore, tragedy, and raw power. For this video, we'll only be focusing on 4 of their greatest. I'm probably gonna miss some of your favorite characters, but I couldn't exactly bring 15 champions to the table and then go through every single one of them. So I'm sticking with 4. Commander Dante, the Master of the Blood, Chief Librarian Mephiston, the Lord of Death, High Priest Corbulo, the Sanguinier Priest of Legend, and the Chaplain Lamartes, Guardian of the Death Company. And while Astarath the Grim gets an honorable mention, mostly because it's kind of funny how he and the Dark Angels Asmodai look exactly like long-lost twins, but ultimately Astarath has no feats that put him in contention here. Sorry Blood Angels fans, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles. One quick note before we dive in, the Sanguinor won't be making an appearance in this video. At this point in the lore, he really isn't a Space Marine anymore. Instead, he manifests more like a warp anomaly or some kind of spiritual entity tied to the Blood Angels, appearing whenever they're in their darkest hour. This is going to be a controversial take, but since he's no longer human in my eyes, I'm just not going to consider him. I share the belief that he is Ascalon, the first commander of the Sanguinier Guard, and the theory goes that Ascalon was lost in the warp while acting as Sanguinius' herald, and was transformed into the being now known as the Sanguinor, making him the host of the Golden Angel, and now more of a warp anomaly than an actual human being. I mean, come on, Blood Angel fans, you already have 4 absolute monsters on this list, you don't need a 5th. The cow has spoken, the cow has spoken. But back to the candidates. I won't lie, they're all broken in some way, shape, or form. And deciding who truly represents their chapter's champion is going to be, and to put it frankly, a clusterfuck. By the time I'm done, I might start seeing Horse Lupercal myself. Let's start with Dante and make our way down the list. Commander Dante is the oldest living Space Marine outside of Dreadnoughts still serving the Imperium. He is over 1,000 years old and stands as a golden armored icon of the Imperium, revered by Astartes and common citizens alike across the galaxy as a savior figure. Unlike most heroes of 40k who eventually get decapitated, their spines ripped out, or squashed by a fat hive tyrant, Dante is one of the few who just never dies, even when he should. Time and time again, fate, prophecy, or sheer willpower keeps him alive, because his story isn't finished yet. And when I say that, I mean GW still has a lot of models to push out. Dante has some insane feats for a guy pushing well over 1,000 years old. He has killed Scarbrand, a greater demon of Khorne, that even gave Guilliman, a Primarch, the run for his money. He also defeated a Swarm Lord during the devastation of Baal, although it almost and probably should have cost him his life. He was revived by a vision of Sanguinius, and his survival allowed Guilliman's Indominus Crusade to save Baal in time. Finally, his most recent feat comes during the Arc of Omens campaign when he fought Demon Primarch Angron, only surviving because of the intervention of the newly returned Lionel Johnson as Dante was getting his face carved in. Still, pretty impressive for a guy older than Yoda. Now we move on to one of the most broken psychers in all of Warhammer 40k, Mephiston, the Lord of Death. Once he was just Calistarius, a librarian of the Blood Angels, but his story took a dark turn when he succumbed to the Black Rage during the Second War for Armageddon. Trapped in rubble and on the verge of death, he didn't give in. Kinda sounds a lot like Obito. Is Toby's identity really Mephiston? Sorry, autistic gal moment. Instead, he did the impossible. He beat the Black Rage through sheer force of will and clawed his way back to the light. When he emerged, he wasn't Calistarius anymore. He was reborn as Mephiston, something greater and something far more terrifying. And his feats since then back it up. He's killed orcs barehanded the moment he rose from his tomb. He's gone toe-to-toe with demon princes like Makar, strangling the life out of them. He's even walked into the planet of sorcerers itself to foil Magnus the Red's schemes. Twice he has been struck by the Black Rage, and twice he has forced it back through sheer willpower. Even more broken, Mephiston has essentially become the host of the Angel of Darkness. For those who don't know, there are two warp entities that seem to embody the two sides of Sanguinius, the Golden Angel and the Angel of Darkness. Every time a son of Baal protects the innocent, the Golden Angel grows stronger. But every time one succumbs to the Black Rage, the Angel of Darkness swells with power. Mephiston now carries this dark fragment, believed to be the shard of Sanguinius' soul, a warp entity of pure wrath and shadow. In becoming its vessel, he gained powers beyond even the mightiest librarians, birthing something new called the Black Angel, a twisted reflection of Sanguinius made flesh through Mephiston. Fueled by his rage and psychic might, he is both warden and prison, holding this nightmare at bay while channeling its unimaginable power. In recent lore, after Mephiston underwent the Rubicon Primaris, reforging himself as a Primaris Marine while still infused with the Black Rage entity, his abilities have grown even further. He's been shown to project his mind into even psychically attuned Eldar, driving them into uncontrollable rage and madness. He can split his soul into multiple doppelgangers, allowing him to achieve several impossible feats at once. He has even displayed the ability to halt and in rare cases reverse the flow of time itself, but this gift is dangerously double-edged. Within the frozen moment, Mephiston continues to age while the universe stands still around him, meaning he can inadvertently waste his entire lifespan in an instant. Yeah, so that's why Mephiston is talked about like the second coming of Jesus Christ. I can't wait to see how Mephiston does against the Psychers on the Chaos side though. Will he be able to beat Ahriman, Azkar Kaon, and Typhus the Traveler? Hey, but it's not over yet guys, we still have two other Blood Angels champions, and they are as equally broken as Mephiston. Next is Corbulo, who is a sanguinier high priest of the Blood Angels and one of the most important figures in the entire chapter. As a guardian of the Red Grail, the sacred chalice that holds the preserved blood of Sanguinius himself, he is both a spiritual leader and the custodian of his Primarch's legacy. Resembling Sanguinius in both appearance and spirit, he carries the impossible duty of trying to cure the Blood Angels and their successor chapters of the Red Thirst and the Black Rage. Corbulo has proven indispensable to the Blood Angels' survival, his precognition guiding the chapter through disasters that would have spelled their doom. He foresaw Ghazghkull's invasion during the Second War for Armageddon, the return of the demon prince Makar, and even the Tyranid assault that nearly consumed his chapter, each time ensuring they were prepared to endure. On the battlefield, he has defended the Red Grail and stood alongside Dante and Mephiston in defense of Sanguinius' remains. But perhaps Corbulo's greatest feat isn't a battle won, it's his foresight. Sharing the same precognition as Sanguinius himself, Corbulo glimpses into the future allow him to anticipate the events that would devastate lesser commanders. If his powers truly mirror that of the Primarchs during the Siege of Terra, then Corbulo is practically untouchable, able to foresee threats before they occur and adjust his every move to avoid death. In a sense, this makes him as close to immortal as a mortal Space Marine can be, a warrior who doesn't need overwhelming strength or godlike speed when he already knows the enemy's hand before it is played. So Corbulo doesn't have any specific feats in the traditional sense like slaying a Stormlord or a greater demon, but if he has the same foresight as Sanguinius, he is quite the Space Marine. we're not even done with the Blood Angels, guys. We have one last candidate. And his name is Chaplain Lamartes, who is the guardian of the lost, the chaplain of the Blood Angels, tasked with leading the Death Company into battle. What makes him utterly unique is that he is the only Blood Angel in history known to have succumbed to the Black Rage while still keeping control of himself. Normally, a brother afflicted by the curse either dies gloriously in battle or is executed afterwards. But Lamartes, through sheer willpower, resisted total collapse, something so extraordinary that High Chaplain Ashtaroth spared him and granted him the sacred duty of leading the Death Company. Since then, he has become a symbol of hope and defiance, an angel who walks the line between sanity and madness. Lamartes is very similar to Brother Corbulo with the fact that he does not have a ton of feats outside of most likely killing other Death Company Blood Angels. But I feel like we really need to dive into the Black Rage to discuss how powerful Lamartes is. When we cover the Blood Angels of the Horus Heresy era, warriors like Raldoron and Nasir Almet ranked among the most powerful because of the sheer buffs the Black Rage gives. It's an insane power-up with massive boosts to strength, speed, and durability, coupled with near-complete psychic resistance and a berserker fury that makes each strike catastrophic. And that's not all. The wildest part is every Blood Angel lost the rage is said to carry an echo of Sanguinius himself, fighting with a fraction of the Primarch's power. That's what makes Lamartes terrifying. He is completely sane, but is able to wield the power of the Black Rage without being misdirected by bald menaces like Horus Lubrical. So where does that leave us? Dante is a legendary warrior king with feats like slaying a swarm lord and a greater demon and surviving encounters with Angron, demon primarch of Khorne. Lamartes channels the Black Rage like no other, wielding the fury of Sanguinius without being consumed by it. Corbulo lacks raw combat feats, but his foresight makes him arguably untouchable, a prophet warrior walking in his Primarch's footsteps. But towering over all of them is Mephiston, the Lord of Death. His psychic power eclipsed nearly every other librarian in the Imperium. His willpower has conquered the Black Rage, and his soul cages a warp entity, the Black Angel itself. He has slain greater demons, shattered the schemes of Magnus the Red, and turned his very curse into a weapon. For all the glory of Dante and the miracles of Corbulo, the strongest champion of the Blood Angels is without a doubt the Lord of Death, Mephiston. You all saw that coming, right? I really hope so. It's pretty obvious that Mephiston is one of the most broken characters in 40k. But still, I really wanted to show everyone how stupidly silly the Sons of Sanguinius are. Like Ragnar Blackmane, I will be including Dante, the Master of the Blood, in the next video. The flesh haters of the Iron Hands are next. The Iron Hands are one of the most unique and tragic of the first founding chapters. Defined by the death of their Primarch Ferrus Manus and the belief that the flesh is weak, they are the Brotherhood obsessed with augmenting themselves with bionics and stripping away weakness and emotions. Cold, ruthless, and calculating, the Iron Hands have become infamous for their brutal logic to the point that many other Astartes chapters regard them as inhuman. Yet despite their reliance on cold logic, some of their greatest heroes prove that there is still fire beneath the steel. For this chapter, we've got three major candidates to look at: Chapter Master Cardan Stronos, Chief Librarian Lydric Noxon, and Anatolis Godokin, a legendary Iron Father of the chapter. And of course, we can't forget a special shout out to Malkon Pharos, one of the most beloved Iron Hands characters in the lore. While he may not have the same galaxy-shaking feats as the others, every Iron Hand fan knows and loves him. As Master of the Forge, Pharos is both a brilliant artificer and a symbol of quiet rebellion within the chapter. Considered a maverick by the Iron Council, he stubbornly refuses to remove his emotions, clinging to the belief that the true wisdom lies in balance, in honoring both logic and feeling. This alone sets him apart, for Ferrus Manus himself could not strike that balance. That Pharos remains Master of the Forge despite these near heretical views is a testament not just to his skill, but also to his respect and his influence among his brothers. In many ways, Pharos represents what the Iron Hands could be, if they ever reconciled with their humanity, which is what makes him so goddamn cool. But back to the candidates. Let's go in reverse order this time, just to shake things up, starting with Anatolis Godokin. Born to a mining clan of Medusa, Godokin survived the brutal trial that claimed 12 of his peers, losing his left hand to a combat servitor before being dragged half dead to the fortress monastery and rebuilt with augments. Marked early as one who could pay any price to endure, he carried this through his campaign as a rare streak of idealism, clinging to the belief that Ferrus Manus might one day return, which I have to say is pretty goddamn stupid. Godolkin's greatest feat, and the reason he is on this list, is he slew a Chaos Lord in single combat during the 13th Black Crusade. And as we discussed earlier, Chaos Lords, as we all know, are highly empowered Space Marines, which means Godolkin is well beyond base Marines. But that's kinda it for his feats. Next is Lydric Noxon, Chief Librarian of the Iron Hands. Although not much is written about him, he was recruited into Clan Borgus, whereafter Noxon first gained renown during the Gaudian Heresy, where he confronted and slew the demon known as the Sapphire King. That single act elevated him to the rank of Iron Father, for few Space Marines, let alone Iron Hands, can claim to have single-handedly banished a demon of such power. He has been on several other missions, but that's the only one that really stands out. And finally, we have our third and final candidate, Chapter Master Cardan Stronos. As Iron Captain of Clan Garzak, Stronos rose to the ranks and trained as a tech marine on Mars, earning a permanent seat on the Iron Council. For over 3 centuries, he has acted as Chapter Master, embodying the Iron Hand's creed of strength through steel, while showing rare concern for his brother's humanity. Both Warlord and Anchor, he has guided the sons of Ferrus Manus through some of the darkest centuries in 40k history. Stronos' greatest feat occurred during the defense of the Paranoth city. He personally defeated Varlang the Butcher, a notorious World Eaters champion of chaos, in single combat. While wielding the legendary Axe of Medusa, Stronos decapitated Varlang after a brutal engagement. So who's the strongest Iron Hand? I think I can easily eliminate Antolus Godolkin. He slew a unnamed Chaos Lord, but that's about it. He doesn't really have any other feats outside of this. So it's between the Chapter Master and the Chief Librarian. Before moving on, let's do a little fun stats check on our current champion total. So far, we've elected 2 Chapter Masters, 2 Captains, and 1 Chief Librarian. Kinda interesting that even with Psychers allowed, they haven't dominated this video. Back to the Iron Hands, this is pretty simple. Let's compare Varlang the Butcher and the Sapphire King to see who was the stronger opponent. The Sapphire King is a demon of Slaanesh and was created from the frustrations of Ferrus Manus at the time of his death, as well as Fulgrim's love for his brother as he slew him, which in my opinion makes him a greater demon. Now Cardan Stronos is a great warrior, and clearly surviving 300 years as a Chapter Master is also a pretty good feat. But I think Lydric, being such a prominent Psyker, puts him in another league, and thus he is the strongest Space Marine from the Iron Hands chapter. Stronos is definitely a pretty strong warrior, but when you have a Chief Librarian who has slain a greater demon of Slaanesh in single combat, it's pretty obvious which one's stronger than the other. Now we finally come to the Blue Smurfs, everyone's favorite Excel Masters, the Ultramarines. The Ultramarines are the textbook example of everything a Space Marine should be. They're disciplined, tactical geniuses, and the living embodiment of the Codex Astartes perfection. Love them or hate them, you can't deny that they are the Imperium's poster boys. Games Workshop absolutely loves these blue boys, which means they get more attention, more books, and more heroic feats than practically any other chapter. This does come with the downside. The sheer volume of Ultramarines lore makes picking the strongest one bit of a headache. There's just so many blue boys doing too many awesome things. Now a couple quick notes before we dive into the candidates. We are first skipping Malum Kaido.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
And I know this is going to be like a bit of a controversial thing, but this dude is basically a Primarch Light. He's out here killing Chaos Marines, demons, and even greater demons like it's Mark Monday at Applebee's. Including him would completely ruin the power scaling of this video, and honestly it makes zero sense in the context of ranking normal Ultramarines. He's ridiculously overpowered and very silly. Second, we will be including Demetrian Titus. Unlike Kaido, Demetrian is grounded. He's insanely skilled, tactical, and badass in his own right, but he still fits the framework of the chapter's power level. This gives us a fair playing field to actually rank all the Ultramarines. So who are the candidates we're talking about here? We have Marneus Calgar, Chapter Master of the Ultramarines, Demetrian Titus, Lieutenant of the 2nd Company, Uriel Ventress, Captain of the 4th Company, Cato Sicarius, Champion of the Ultramarines, and Varo Tigurius, Chief Librarian of the chapter. We've got a lot of blue boys here, lots of SMURFS. Let's start with Chapter Master Calgar. Marneus Calgar is the Chapter Master of the Ultramarines and one of the greatest warriors in the 40k setting. And now, as one of the first to cross the Rubicon Primaris, he has been given enhanced organs and near godlike endurance. Calgar's feats are a little ridiculous. I'm gonna list them out, and if your jaw doesn't drop, I'll personally send you a barrel of milk. He's defeated an Avatar of Cain in single combat, he's slain a Stormlord during the Battle of Icar 4, he's killed one of the strongest bloodthirsters of Khorne, Angarath, and defeated Demon Prince Makar. And yet, he did get his ass absolutely pounded by Abaddon, but remember, Abaddon at this point might be close to Primarch level. Calgar is the literal embodiment of the Matt Ward Ultramarine Circle Jerk era. Next, we have Demetrian Titus, the main character from the Space Marine games. A fearless warrior from humble beginnings, Titus has proved himself to be a loyal servant of the Emperor even after being captured by the Inquisition and tortured for decades. Titus is now just a lieutenant in the service of the Ultramarine 2nd Company, but his career is filled with jaw-dropping feats. He personally slew Orc Warboss Grimskull, stopped the Chaos Lord Nemiroff's ascension, and survived direct exposure to warp energies from the Psychic Scourge. He's also assisted in slaying the Chaos Sorcerer Emure, and finally, during the Secret Levels episode, he slew a corrupted Tzeentchian sorcerer who appeared capable of stopping time. God damn! I mean, I guess it makes sense, he's literally the main character. Next, we have Uriel Ventress. He grew up working the land from his earliest days and was recruited at the age of 6. He would eventually become Veteran Sergeant, and during the Battle of Bridge 2-4 on Thracia, he assumed command after his captain's heroic sacrifice, becoming the 4th Company's captain. Ventress' feats include slaying a great number of demons, Chaos Space Marines, and a fucking Catan shard.
What? What the fuck?
Yeah, you heard me right. Your ears are definitely working. He defeated a Catan shard. Pretty much what happens is Uriel Ventress gets into a mind-off with this thing and discovers its weakness. Self-esteem and a fear of not being good enough, like some edgy 14-year-old emo bullshit. Ventress then tells the Khan, and I'm not kidding guys, this really happens, it's worthless and it should just fuck off and kill itself. And guess what? It works.
That just makes no fucking sense. I mean, it's just bullshit. Fuck. Oh my.
Yeah, what? I get that it's hard to write a win against a literal god, but come on. I'm not counting this because it's way too goddamn silly. Ventress literally loses to a greater demon, which means he would scale far below Catan shard level. So it's not happening. Not listing it. It's chalked up to silly Matt Ward Ultramarine feats, and I don't care that the book wasn't even written by him. After Uriel, we have Cato Sicarius, captain of the Ultramarines Honor Guard and the champion of the chapter. Let me put on my best Cato Sicarius voice. I, Cato Sicarius, am a tactical genius, a cold-blooded killer on the battlefield. I, Cato Sicarius, lead my troops in impossible battles and personally slay god-tier enemies. I, Cato Sicarius, am the embodiment of why you never want to mess with the 2nd Company.
What the hell was that?
I don't even know if that was accurate. I tried my best, but I think I'm gonna get shit on for that one. Sicarius is another perfect example of another Mary Sue Space Marine from the Matt Ward era. Like seemingly every single Ultramarine on this list, his feats are ridiculous as well. He personally slew the Demon Prince Cormegron, even while heavily wounded. But wait, that's not even the best one. He also defeated a Catan shard. Yes, another Catan shard. I'm about to lose my mind. Technically, this isn't a pure combat feat because the Catan was rampaging through Necrons and Ultramarines alike, and Sicarius only survived thanks to a Vortex grenade from a Deathwatch buddy, which is basically a portable warp rift and the only thing that can actually kill a Catan. But wait, it doesn't stop there. Later, while stranded in the warp aboard the Emperor's Will, Sicarius and his crew endured waves of demonic incursions and Chaos Space Marine raids for nearly 5 years. Most of the mortal crew either died or went insane, and the Space Marines ran out of almost all of their ammo, but Sicarius still survived. Even more insane. Yes, how can it get even more insane than that? During the Indominus Crusade, he went on to personally slay a Necron Lord in single combat. What the hell, Games Workshop? Why do the Ultramarines have some of the most broken characters in 40k? What? Our final candidate is Varo Tyberos, Chief Librarian of the Ultramarines, and once again, another broken character. Wow, I'm so surprised at this point. Renowned for his immense psychic power and tactical genius, Tyberos has served the chapter for decades, guiding his brothers with uncanny foresight. He is one of the Imperium's foremost experts in countering both Orc Wogs and Tyranid hive fleets. Beneath his calm, calculating demeanor lies a reservoir of fury and destructive power, making him both a trusted advisor and a devastating force on the battlefield. The Chief Librarian has two insane feats. The first one was penetrating the hive mind itself, a feat so dangerous that only an alpha level psyker or greater could survive that without descending immediately into madness. And his other great feat is holding off a great unclean one of Nurgle. Although he didn't destroy it, he was able to fight it for quite some time before the greater demon retreated. If true, this cements Tyberos as one of the strongest psykers in the current Imperium. Oh my god, this is a tough debate. We have a broken Chief Librarian, we have a broken Chapter Master, we have a main character from a Space Marine video game, we have a main character from several books, and we have Cato fucking Sicarius. Oh my god. Let's narrow the field to find out who truly is the strongest. First up for elimination is Uriel Ventress. Sure, he convinced a Catan shard to off itself, but beyond that, his resume doesn't really stack up to the rest. It's impressive, but compared to what the others have pulled off, it's simply not enough. Easy elimination. That leaves us Titus, Calgar, Sicarius, and Tyberos. All still monsters, mind you. Let's look at their best feats. Titus defeated Chaos Lord Nemroth right on the cusp of demonhood. Calgar took down both a Swarm Lord and an Avatar of Cain. Sicarius slew a Demon Prince and a Necron Overlord. And Tyberos held off a Great Unclean One, although he didn't actually slay it, but he did survive the full might of the Hive Mind. With these accomplishments in mind, the next elimination is a little bit easier. Dimitri Titus is an absolute beast, no question, but compared to the insane caliber of foes Calgar, Tyberos, and Sicarius have faced, Nemroth and Imrush don't really compare, so he just falls short. Even if Titus did face, say, a Demon Prince, or a Necron Overlord, or a Swarm Lord, I just simply don't think he has the feats or the prowess to come out ahead. Now, that said, the Games Workshop leads could just change the story so Titus could bully the hell out of them, and I could totally see it happening, but using what I've seen in both the narrative and the books, I just don't think Titus is that strong compared to the head honchos of the chapter. Now we're down to 3. Calgar, Sicarius, and Tyberos. Unfortunately, all 3 of these guys are insanely strong, but I'm gonna have to eliminate Varo Tyberos. He's undoubtedly powerful, but more of a seer and strategist than a frontline destroyer. His foresight and raw power is unmatched, but when it comes to combat, he couldn't finish off a Great Unclean One, so he's out. Both Calgar and Sicarius have been shown to kill Demon Princes, so they simply scale above him. Kinda crazy that Sicarius and Calgar scale far above a Chief Librarian Psyker. So that is the final showdown. Marneus Calgar, Chapter Master, versus Cato Sicarius, Champion of the Ultramarines. Both have insane feats, but to settle this, we have to ask, who faced the stronger opponent and fared better? Sicarius' biggest win was against Demon Prince Cor Migron, a deadly and terrifying foe, no doubt. But Calgar's opponent was none other than an Avatar of Cain, a literal shard of an Eldar god of war. A Demon Prince is strong, yes, but an Avatar of Cain is arguably stronger. Sicarius, in that fight with the Demon Prince, was heavily wounded and near death, while Calgar seemed to easily kill the Avatar of Cain, only suffering a few wounds, which is pretty goddamn crazy since the Avatar is the physical manifestation of Cain, the bloody-handed god of war, and exists solely for the purpose of war and slaughter. To face an Avatar of Cain is to fight something far beyond even the mightiest champions of chaos, and Calgar not only faced it, he emerged victorious. So with that in mind, the answer is pretty gosh darn clear. Marneus Calgar, Chapter Master of the Ultramarines, stands as their champion, the most powerful Ultramarine of them all. I mean, this guy has defeated a Swarm Lord, an Avatar Cain, and a Demon Prince. He even faced off against Abaddon, though he did get his butt kicked, Abaddon, like I've stated earlier, is just something else entirely nowadays. But before moving on to the next chapter, it's pretty evident that the Ultramarines have some of the greatest warriors in all the Adeptus Astartes. So powerful, in fact, that I'm not going to feature just one, not two, not even three, but 4 Ultramarines in the future ranking video. Calgar, Sicarius, Tyberos, and Titus will all represent the Ultramarines chapter when I put them head to head with the strongest Space Marines from across every chapter and warband. And with the Ultramarines settled, it's time to move on to our next chapter, the Salamanders. I hope no one watching is an Eldar. The Salamanders are one of the most unique and beloved chapters in the Imperium. Descended from their Primarch Vulcan, they embody resilience, craftsmanship, and a rare sense of humanity among the Adeptus Astartes. Where most Space Marines view themselves as demigods detached from mortals, the Salamanders take pride in protecting the common people of the Imperium, often fighting tooth and nail to shield civilians, where other chapters might see them as expendable. Their culture is centered around the Forge. Their weapons and relics, often masterpieces of craftsmanship, and their endurance in battle is nothing short of legendary. Now, I definitely agree the Salamanders are treated better in modern 40k lore than they were back in the Horus Heresy days. But let's be honest, folks, there still aren't a ton of truly feat-worthy characters to pull from here. The Salamanders don't have a Dante or a Calgar pumping out legendary war records every other week. Their lore is more about endurance, protection, and looking for random artifacts their dad left over a millennium ago. So our pool of Salamanders candidates it's pretty small. Really, we've only got 2 big names to work with here. Chapter Master Tushan and Forge Father Vulcan Histan. Tushan is the current Chapter Master and perfectly represents the Salamander's ideals: compassionate, duty, and self-sacrifice. Beyond being a formidable warrior, Tushan holds the title of the Regent of Prometheus, making him a guardian of his people and the system of Nocturne. His feats, though, are quite impressive. During the Second War for Armageddon, he defended a vital bridge against over 1,000 orc speed freaks, holding the line with the Fire Drakes for 3 days and 4 nights of non-stop combat. And of course, he famously put Captain Vineyard of the Marines Malevolent in his place after the reckless shelling of a refugee camp. And on the other hand, we have Vulcan Histan. From his earliest days as a scout, Histan stood out. He single-handedly slew a modded Trihorn, a feat even veteran Drake hunters rarely accomplished. After over a century as captain of the 4th Company, Histan was chosen as Forge Father, tasked with seeking the 9 sacred artifacts forged by Vulcan himself. Renouncing his old name, he became Vulcan Histan, a living link to his Primarch. Now, Histan's feats are kind of insane, and his war gear sets him apart from virtually any other Space Marine in this setting. These aren't just your standard power swords or thunderhammers. Each piece is a unique masterpiece personally forged by Vulcan himself. Histan is equipped with 3 of them. First, the Spear of Vulcan, a burning weapon capable of slicing through ceramite like paper and devastating at range when thrown. His second item is Caesar's Mantle, a Drake scale cloak tougher than most armor, which shields him from blows that would fell lesser warriors. Histan also is equipped with the Gauntlet of the Forge, an armored gauntlet that doubles as a heavy flamer, turning close quarters combat into an inferno. And those are just his weapons. He has 2 standout feats, which include infiltrating the Dark Elder's webway to rescue a Salamander's chaplain, showcasing both his cunning and his combat prowess, and even more insane, he personally defeated Trazyn the Infinite, the Necron Overlord, not once, but twice, preventing him from claiming Vulcan's sacred relics. Do we even need to debate this? It's pretty easy to see why Vulcan Histan is the strongest Space Marine from the Salamanders chapter. If we really want to talk about it, Trazyn is a Necron Overlord, which means he has access to various high-powered technology, and Trazyn himself has captured so many gosh darn things, because you know what? He's literally Ash Ketchum. So if Histan literally beat him twice, even with all these advantages, Histan is easily the champion of this chapter, and to put it frankly, might be a top 10 or top 20 strongest Space Marine in terms of prowess. Now, we're not talking about that in this video, but Histan is quite the fella. Now that we've crowned the Forge Father, it's time to move on to our last first founding chapter, the Raven Guard, the emo-est boys of the 40K universe. The Raven Guard are the shadowy assassins of the Adeptus Astartes, specialists in stealth, infiltration, and surgical strikes. They operate from the shadows, striking where the enemy least expects, and often leaving nothing but confusion and bodies in their wake. Unlike some of the flashier chapters, the Raven Guard don't get a ton of new lore these days, and honestly, the roster of standout characters is sadly pretty slim. Recently though, Games Workshop dropped a very small update to the Raven Guard. Kayvon Shrike is no longer their chapter master. The chapter supposedly required a more balanced figure of their shadowy Primarch's teachings to lead them, which translates to Games Workshop just wanted an excuse to sell yet another model. Classic. So with the Raven Guard, we've only really got two names to work with, Kayvon Shrike and Aethon Sean. Shrike is the legendary shadow captain of the Raven Guard and for a long time was the chapter's embodiment of terror from the shadows. Shrike's most notable feat includes being stranded behind enemy lines during Wog Skullcrack's invasion, where he led a 2-year guerrilla campaign that brought the conclusion decades ahead of Imperial predictions. He also fought alongside White Scar's captain, Corsaro Khan, to defeat the Demon Prince, Kernex Voldris, overcoming both Chaos Corruption and Alpha Legion interference in the process. Then we have Aethon Sean, the current chapter master of the Raven Guard, handpicked by Shrike to embody the chapter's shadowy ideals while providing a more balanced leadership. Sean rose to the ranks demonstrating lethal skill and tactical precision, quickly becoming one of the chapter's most trusted warriors. His greatest accomplishments include infiltrating the Fortress of Hera with a 4th Company squad so stealthily that the Ultramarines didn't detect them until they revealed themselves. He also demonstrated competence in killing various Chaos Marines across multiple engagements. So who's the strongest Space Marine from the Raven Guard's chapter? Easy question, guys. Easy peasy. It's Shrike. Come on, hit that "that was easy" button. Aethon Sean simply doesn't have the same level of feats, making Shrike the clear choice as the Raven Guard's most formidable warrior. So now that we've covered all the first founding chapters, it's time to dive into the successor chapters. But before we jump headfirst in, let's take a quick break and breathe. How's everyone's day going? I hope it's going wonderfully, especially now that you're watching the cow power scale for almost 3 hours. Now a quick pit stop before we get started. Some of these successor chapters you all voted for don't really have a ton of strong named Space Marines. In fact, many of them only have 1 or 2 standout warriors, which makes it kinda hard to power scale. But don't worry, I'll do my absolute best to break it all down and rank them properly, because as the best cow power scaler this side of the Mississippi River, I've got you covered. On top of that, there are so many successor chapters that it's going to be tough to cover all your favorites in one go. Like I said in the intro, if there's a popular demand for a second version covering even more chapters and their best Marines, I'll definitely consider doing it. You know, to make even more work for myself in the final version. But fear not, I am a man of the people, or rather, a cow of the people. If that's what the herd wants, I shall fulfill it. If this video gets over 1,000 likes and 250 comments, I will definitely put out a second part. So drop which chapters you would like to see in a second part, and go ahead and like this video. Let us continue this madness with the successor chapters you voted for. So that leaves the Blood Ravens, the Flesh Terrors, the Black Templars, the Carcharodons, the Minotaurs, the Lamenters, the Exorcists, the Raptors, the Howling Griffins, the Death Watch, the Crimson Fists, and the Grey Knights. Let's start things off with the protagonists of the Dawn of War franchise, the Blood Ravens. The Blood Ravens are one of Warhammer 40K's most mysterious Space Marine chapters, renowned for their insatiable thirst for knowledge, their uncanny knack for acquiring relics that don't exactly belong to them, and of course their starring role in the Dawn of War video games. Officially, their origins are lost to history, but there's a long-standing fan theory that ties them to one of the most infamous Primarchs of all time, Magnus the Red. From their deep reliance on psychic power to their questionable moral flexibility, the shadow of the Thousand Suns looms heavily over their legacy. But we're not here to unravel their hidden past. The real question is, who stands as the single strongest Bloodraven in all of Warhammer 40k? I have 4 candidates in mind here. Apollo Diomedes, Captain of the Honor Guard, Jonah Orion, Chief Librarian, Aramis, Captain of the 4th Company, the main protagonist of Dawn of War 2, and finally, Gabriel Angelos, Chapter Master of the Bloodravens. We'll start with Apollo Diomedes. Apollo Diomedes is a warrior forever defined by his strength, loyalty, and his brushes with damnation. Though never corrupted himself, Diomedes' rigid devotion to the chapter once saw him unwillingly serve the will of chaos through his obedience to the traitorous chapter master, Azariah Kairos. But what feats does Apollo have that make him worthy enough to be a candidate for the most powerful marine in the Bloodravens chapter? Well, Apollo Diomedes' record speaks for itself. He was deemed worthy to command the chapter master's honor guard, a position of immense prestige and trust. His martial skill was proved on the penal world of Obscurus, where in a single day he cut down both an orc war boss and a chaos sorcerer lord, victories that would be career defining for any other captain. Today he serves as the chaplain of the Bloodravens chapter, a role that represents both his personal redemption and a fitting continuation of his storied journey. Honestly, he's got a pretty goddamn cool character arc. Next we have Jonah Orion, who is the current Chief Librarian of the Bloodravens, a master of psychic warfare and one of the chapter's most dedicated guardians against heresy and alien threats. Similar to the feats of Varo Tigurius, during the Aurelian Crusade, he was one of the few psychers able to combat the Tyranid hive mind, emerging as the sole survivor of a dozen librarians, navigators, and astropaths. I would like to remind everyone that Tigurius fought the hive mind alone and survived, while Jonah Orion had help and assistance from multiple other psychers, and they all died but him. God damn, those Ultramarines are broken. In recent lore, Orion's psychic might has grown even more, allowing the Bloodravens to purge remaining Tyranid infestations and prevent further chaos corruption. He even now employs a familiar to focus his formidable powers. Pretty much, Jonah Orion is a living arsenal of psychic power, a protector of the chapter's integrity, and one of the Bloodravens' most dangerous warriors. Our third candidate is Aramis, who is the main protagonist of the Dawn of War 2 games and a standout figure among the Bloodravens for his tactical brilliance, combat skill, and adaptability under fire. Like Dimitri and Titus before him, Aramis comes to prominence through the video game narratives, but his feats are no less impressive. Aramis first drew attention during the Haradrian campaign, leading a mission that destroyed an enemy artillery position without suffering any casualties. His success earned him a promotion to Force Commander, making him one of the youngest Bloodravens ever to hold that rank. Later, Gabriel Angelos promoted Aramis to Captain of the 4th Company. Aramis would wield a chainsword and a bolt pistol by default, but gains access to virtually the entire Bloodravens arsenal in the game, including the legendary Thunderhammer, known as the Hammer of the Nameless, rumored to have banished the greater demon Ulker. Now, since Aramis is a video game character, his feats are kind of impacted by what the player decides to do, which makes him very hard to power scale. Why did I include him? Well, he just seemed like a really cool character to throw in here, because his story is shaped by his choices. He can rise as a hero, trend the path of a renegade, or even succumb to chaos, resulting in an alternate fate ranging from centuries-long pennant crusades to execution or joining the Black Legion. Overall, he's a pretty cool character, but it's gonna be tough to power scale him when it comes down to deciding who is the strongest from this chapter. Our last candidate is Gabriel Angelos, one of the most iconic figures of the Bloodravens, renowned for his leadership, combat skill, and unwavering dedication to the chapter. Over his career, he rose to command entire companies and later presided over the blood trials himself. Those actions often revealed a sharper mind than mere ritual would suggest. So what feats does Gabriel Angelos have outside of doing a flip in Terminator armor? Well, most of them happen on the planet of Tartarus, where he led the Blood Angels against the Orcs, the Alpha Legion, and Chaos Sorcerers, ultimately defeating Lord Baal, and with the aid of his chapter and Eldar allies, he defeated Demon Prince Sindri Mir. But sometime after this confrontation, he fought corrupted chapter master Azariah Kairos, and he would suffer his greatest defeat, losing one of his eyes and both of his legs, which later would be replaced with augments, though he defeated foes like Lord Baal and the corrupted librarian Isidoro Kaios, which means Gabriel scales below psychic powerhouses like an Eldar Farseer or a Demon Prince, relying more on raw strength than speed or sorcery. So who really deserves the title of the strongest Bloodraven? This is gonna be a tough debate. let's go over all of their greatest feats. First, Apollo Diomedes, a veteran warrior who faced both an orc war boss and a chaos sorcerer lord and now serves as a chaplain. A cool character arc, no doubt, but his feats, while impressive, are mostly limited to standard high-end captain level victories. Next, Jonah Orion, chief librarian of the chapter, is a psyker of great skill, surviving Tyranid onslaughts and chaos corruption, but his powers are mostly situational, tied to specific battles and story events. Then Aramis, the protagonist of Dawn of War 2, he has countless battlefield accomplishments thanks to the player-driven narrative, but many of his feats are narrative dependent, which makes it hard to weigh him against other canon marines. Finally, we have Gabriel Angelos, often hyped as a super strong chapter master, yet his greatest feats are only defeating corrupted sorcerers and librarians. He clearly has some strength, but he definitely scales far below Eldar Farseers and Demon Princes, and his victories come at severe physical cost, losing an arm and both legs during combat. Compared to what we've seen in this video, that's not really good. Angelos' feats are only slightly better than Diomedes and Aramis. But when you're directly comparing Gabriel Angelos against these two, he consistently demonstrates the better feats. His courage, leadership, and proven battlefield skill make him, by default, the strongest warrior from this chapter, even if he isn't quite the galaxy-shattering powerhouse some fans make him out to be. Next, we move on to one of the most ferocious and feared Blood Angel's successor chapters, the Flesh Terrors. Known for their relentless savagery and the tragic curse of the Black Rage, the Flesh Terrors are notorious for their battlefield ferocity, as they are for the heavy toll it takes on their own ranks. Among this chapter, we only have two clear candidates for the title of the strongest Marine: Chapter Master Gabriel Seth and First Company Champion Herhel. Gabriel Seth has presided over the Flesh Terrors for over a century, commanding its chapter through countless battles while attempting to keep their infamous Black Rage from consuming them entirely. Seth's record is formidable. He has fought alongside Dante to defend the crypt of Sanguinius against mutants unleashed by Fabius Bile, served as a key Imperial commander during the devastation of Baal, and led the Flesh Terrors in the Angels Halo campaign, personally slaying a massive Tyranid psychic beast. Wielding a massive chainsword, Blood Reaver, Seth embodies the perfect balance of ferocity, leadership, and tactical prowess. I would like to add that during a tense trial involving the other Blood Angel chapter masters, he threatened them, cementing him as one of the coolest chapter masters in 40k history. And I quote here in my most perfect Gabriel Seth voice, "I will kill every last one of you before my head leaves my shoulders. I will tear out your eyes and drink your blood dry. Know this. Know it to be true." While this may have been all show, it's easy to imagine Seth using the Red Thirst to berserk through some of his peers and potentially even challenge Dante himself, carving a bloody path before eventually succumbing. Our other candidate is Herhel, who is the Flesh Terror's first company champion, and he is no slouch either. He played a vital role in defending Baal Primus during the Tyranid invasion of High Fleet Leviathan, managing to survive the catastrophic loss of the world when Seth ordered the evacuation. Herhel's combat style is kinda hilarious. He once tore the skull off a random nearby corpse and hurled it at a traitor, piercing his skull, cracking his sternum, and stopping his heart. While this feat shows his raw brutality, Herhel's accomplishments are generally less consistent and strategic than Seth's century-long record of battlefield leadership and victories. When we directly compare the two, it becomes clear that while Herhel is a fearsome and brutal warrior, Gabriel Seth is just him. His victories show endurance and adaptability under the harshest conditions. So, for the Flesh Terrors, the strongest Marine is undeniably Chapter Master Gabriel Seth. With the Flesh Terrors accounted for, it's time to turn our attention to another of the Emperor's most fanatical chapters, the Black Templars. The Black Templars continue the legacy of their first High Marshal, Sigismund, favoring close combat over ranged engagements. The chapter has maintained a reputation for producing some of the deadliest melee warriors in the current setting. Their preference for boarding actions, crusades, and frontal assaults makes them uniquely suited to one-on-one combat and small unit heroics, ensuring that their champions often outshine their peers in duels. For the Black Templars, we have several notable candidates, starting with High Marshal Helbricht, Reclusiarch Merrick Grimaldus, Marshal Amalrich, and the many warriors who have served as the Emperor's Champion. For those unfamiliar, the Emperor's Champion is a unique role within the chapter. On the eve of battle, one warrior is chosen through visions from the Emperor himself. After being presented to a chaplain for scrutiny, the champion may be entrusted with sacred relics such as the Armor of Faith and the Black Sword. Before combat, he leads the chapter in renewing one of the 4 sacred vows. Suffer not the unclean to live, uphold the honor of the Emperor, abhor the witch, destroy the witch, or accept any challenge no matter the odds. In battle, the champion inspires his brothers through acts of zeal and heroism, often achieving feats beyond those of an ordinary space marine. Even in death, his deeds are recorded for all time. So before we jump into the Emperor's Champion, I feel like it's important to clarify the nature of the Black Sword in 40k. Contrary to popular belief, these are not typically Emperor Forged relics. Most are exceptionally crafted power swords, made extraordinary by the faith and devotion of the warrior who wields them. Sigismund's original Black Sword, however, is different. It is believed to have been forged by the Emperor in some manner and may have carried mysterious properties. I myself theorize that it carried a null aura. Today, this legendary weapon rests in the Temple of Dorn, aboard the Eternal Crusader. Its current wielder is unknown. None of the present Emperor's Champion bear Sigismund's blade. Instead, they wield other black swords that function primarily as faith-enhanced weapons. Given the sheer number of Emperor's Champions throughout history, we will identify the strongest current champion and compare him against the other leading Black Templar candidates. The contenders for the strongest Emperor's Champion are Eilhart the Slayer, Senric, Garion, Johannes Berengar, Reinhardt, and Reynold the Retribution. So what are their greatest feats? Let's start with Reinhardt. Reinhardt led the Black Templars to victory over the Lords of Desolation warband on Sephiroth Ultra, killing the word-bearer sorcerer Exhal Eurus before being slain himself. Next, we have Reynold the Retribution, who single-handedly defended a strike cruiser against demons while grievously wounded, wielding only a chainsword, cutting down every enemy before dying. His heroism was later commemorated with a black sword bearing his name. Johannes Berengar fought Fulgrim's forces on Crucible, showing exceptional command and dueling skill, but ultimately falling to a combined enemy interference. Garion held the rear guard during the defense of Cadia in the 13th Black Crusade, stalling Abaddon's forces long enough for survivors to escape, though he was ultimately killed in the process. Damn, it seems like every single one of these guys is dead. Oof. Next we have Senric, an Emperor's Champion who personally slew war boss Grashback during a critical orc invasion and leading surviving forces to fortify the planet. And finally, we have Eilhart the Slayer. During the battle for Mirlas against Hive Fleet Leviathan, he slew the Hive Tyrant and destroyed a Tyranid Hive ship from within, demonstrating extreme courage and dueling skill. When assessing the Black Templars candidates, the Emperor's Champions stand out for a singular, game-changing feat in the heat of combat, often against overwhelming odds. Among them, Eilhart the Slayer demonstrates unparalleled lethal efficiency and top-tier dueling capability, exemplified by his defeat of the Hive Tyrant. So he is definitely the strongest Emperor's Champion still kicking around. So now let's compare Eilhart to Helbricht, Chapter Master of the Black Templars, Merrick Grimaldus, and Marneus Calgar. Let's start with Helbricht. Helbricht was born in the Underhives of Piety, under the watchful protection of the Custodes of the Aquilon Shield, guided by the Doomscryer's prophecies, which saw him as an important individual to the Emperor's goal. Unaware of his guardians, Helbricht eventually joined the Black Templars, quickly making a name for himself through relentless violence, stubbornness, and a desire to slay the Emperor's foes. His greatest feats include losing to a Necron Lord, Imhotep the Storm Lord, who he would later track down and defeat in their second encounter. He also slew the war boss, Tusker Grope, World Killer, and fought Iron Warpsmith Torvin Vlka. In my research, I have also seen mention that he slew a demon prince, but I can't find any canon knowledge of this feat, so I will not be including it. Feel free to correct me in the comments though. Grimaldus is next. He survived the Battle of Hell's Reach, cutting down thousands of orcs in the process. He is more of a spiritual warrior than one with overwhelming combat power, and he made the list primarily as a super cool goddamn character rather than a monster duelist. His feats include leading the Black Templars in the defense of Hive Hell's Reach, surviving the destruction of the Temple of the Emperor Ascendant while carrying its relics, and inspiring the defenders and population through his faith and sheer perseverance. After him is Marneus Calgar, who was a marshal in the Black Templars chapter. Commanding the Crux's Crusade, he came to the aid of the Imperial defenders on Cadia during the 13th Black Crusade. During the final actions of the battle for the Cadian system, Calgar was among those seeking to protect Belisarius Caul's artifact from the Black Legion. This team of defenders, including Saint Celestine and Inquisitor Greyfax, were ultimately saved by the Eldar and guided into the webway. Calgar was the sole survivor of his crusade after the battle at the Fortress of Hera and took up the Black Sword in the aftermath. Later, during the Terran Crusade, Calgar was captured by Chaos forces along with the rest of the Imperial expedition, but later was freed by Cypher and his Harlequin allies. The escapees came under renewed Chaos assault, and Calgar gave his life to impale Skarbrand through the chest with the Black Sword. Guilliman was later able to exploit this wound to defeat the Bloodthirster. And then we have the Emperor's champion we selected, Eilhart the Slayer, who defeated a Tyranid Hive Tyrant and cleared out a Hive ship and still managed to make it out alive. While a Tyranid Hive Tyrant is generally weaker than a Greater Demon, his feat demonstrates impressive skill in close quarters combat and tactical prowess in hostile environments. I mean, the guy was literally inside a Hive ship and he killed a Hive Tyrant and made it out alive. What is this? Is this the new Space Marine main character? That's insane. So which one of these bad mamma jammas is the strongest? Let's compare their greatest accomplishments. Helbrecht's greatest feat is defeating the Stormlord in single combat. Grimaldus is more of a spiritual leader, so he doesn't have a really standout feat outside of killing an unnumbered amount of orcs. Calgar dueled the Greater Demon Skarbrand and even managed to wound him, and the Emperor's champion, Eilhart the Slayer, managed to kill a Hive Tyrant and clear out a whole Hive ship. So which one is the most significant feat? Scaling these feats shows that Helbrecht is the strongest Black Templar candidate due to his dueling and defeating of Imhotep the Stormlord, whose abilities include reality-altering technology, regeneration, and perfect perception, easily placing him above Greater Demon threats. Grimaldus is eliminated from the top combat slot as his feats are more inspirational rather than raw power. Marneus Calgar comes next, having wounded the Greater Demon Skarbrand but not decisively killed it. And then we come to Eilhart the Slayer, who has slain a Tyranid Hive Tyrant and fought through a Hive ship. But still, Helbrecht remains the most powerful of the current Black Templars chapter. So if we do a quick little stats check, we have 6 chapter masters, a couple of psychers, 1 forge master, and 4 captains nominated. The next chapter are the Carcharodons, and their strongest warrior, Shark Boy.
Can't fight my instincts! No, Shark Boy!
The Carcharodons are the galaxy's ultimate hunters. Stalking the void with unrelenting precision, they strike where others can't reach, appearing like shadows on the edge of the Imperium, leaving ruin in their wake. Their history is fragmented, their operations secret, their methods brutal and surgical. Whole systems have fallen silent under their assaults, and their warriors are bred to be predators first, Space Marines second. Few know their names, fewer survive encounters with them. Among their strongest Marines are Tyberos the Red Wake, Te Kahurungi, the Pale Nomad, Manfor, and Baal Shar, the Reaper Prime, whose stories are etched in blood, shadows, and silence. First, let's start with Tyberos the Red Wake.
Soft. Overrated. Pretty boy. A bitch.
Tyberos is the figure everyone talks about, but much of his fame is literally inflated by art and community hype. He is often depicted at Primarch scale heights, giving the impression of invincibility, but canon appearances reveal a more grounded legend. He soloed an entire Tyranid boarding pod and likely led the Carcharodon teleport assault that destroyed Babdab Primaris, ending the Babdab War. His appearances in the Outer Dark and the Silent Hunters are brief yet impactful, showing him whispering on a throne and manipulating events from the shadow. While much of his reputation comes from memes, his feats in boarding actions and large-scale assaults cement him as one of the most formidable duelists and warriors in the chapter. Second is Te Kahurungi, the Pale Nomad. I literally have no idea if that's how you say his last name, and I tried to do a bunch of research on how to say it, and I think that's how you do it, or say it. Please correct me if I'm wrong. The Pale Nomad is the chief librarian of the Carcharodon chapter. He and his younger twin brother grew up on an ocean world, fighting deep-sea predators as youths. The Pale Nomad's feats are kinda mid. He was defeated and captured by the sorcerer Shadrath, but then he was able to use his psychic abilities to crush Amon Kal, a Chaos Lord under Derbies, during the tide of battle. His fates are just kinda eh. Our third candidate is Manfor, who wields the Chainblade Skin Shrive, embodying the silent lethal menace of the Carcharodons. He has fought alongside the Indominus Crusades fleet on multiple occasions before slipping back into the void, leaving only the memory of his predatory efficiency. Manfor has killed wordbearers, demons, and cultists alike with ruthless efficiency. He is the perfect example of what a Carcharodon is: silent, calculating, and devastating in execution. And then we have our fourth and final candidate, Baal Shar, who commands the third company of the Carcharodons and holds the title Reaper Prime. Shar's feats include slaying World Eater Berserkers in single combat, and he later fought Artargus Prime on Piety 5, purging Tyranids and Genestealer cults while working alongside the Ashen Claws. Honestly guys, it's kind of a bummer, but when you start comparing the feats, the Space Sharks, or I guess the Carcharodons, come off as slightly overhyped in the lore. None of their notable characters have truly earth-shattering accomplishments when stacked against other chapters' legends. Take Tyberos the Red Wake. Sure, he cleared a Tyranid boarding pod and is perfectly capable of slaughtering base-level marines, but beyond that, we mostly see him in canon, sitting on thrones, or appearing in cameos. He hasn't really been tested against high-tier threats like Chaos Sorcerers, Demon Princes, or other reality-warping entities. We could go even further. Baal Shar lost in combat to Amon Kal, hardly a universe-shaking feat. Manfor did manage to slay corrupted marines and demons, but nothing that really scales to galaxy-level threats. The Chief Librarian, the Pale Nomad, while brilliant and long-lived, doesn't exactly demonstrate the kind of psychic feat or combat feats that would make him a top-tier contender outside his tactical utility. So, where the hell does that leave us in regards to the strongest Carcharodon? By the thinnest of thin margins, Tyberos the Red Wake emerges as the strongest among the Carcharodons. Not because we've seen him utterly dominate impossible foes, but because his limited feats are the peak of what this chapter has to offer. His combat presence, boarding pod soloing, and the role in the Babdab War teleportation strike hint at a serious capability, but the lore simply hasn't shown him in more universe-defining combat. That's why so many fans elevate him. He's largely a mystery, and what little we see looks impressive, so imagination fills in the gaps. Honestly, look at his lexicon page. That's it. Beyond that, it's all hype and speculation. No demonstrated feats. I know some Carcharodon fans are gonna jump in here and say, Tyberos is actually stronger than Calgar. And if you say that, I'm going to come to your house, I'm going to open your door, and I'm going to throw a pine cone with a lot of ants on it. And bam, ant infestation in your house. I hope you're happy. Next are the highly controversial Minotaurs chapter. The Minotaurs chapter is the embodiment of brutal efficiency and relentless aggression. Every Minotaur is trained to strike with deadly precision and unyielding ferocity, making them one of the Imperium's most feared assault forces. Within this chapter, a few individuals stand out as champions, each leaving their mark on the history of the Imperium. I have selected 4 of these champions. Ivanis Enkomi, voice of the Minotaurs, who is the current Ecclesiarch chaplain of the chapter. Asterion Moloch, chapter master of the Minotaurs, and Captain Thule. Let's start with Ivanis Enkomi. Ivanis Enkomi commands respect for his strategic insight and battlefield leadership. While his individual duels are less documented than Asterion Moloch, he has led Minotaur forces to decisive victories in numerous siege and boarding operations. Enkomi exemplifies the chapter's lethal efficiency, ensuring that his squads execute devastating effective attacks against Chaos, Orcs, and other foes. Similar to Grimaldus, he is such a cool chaplain, and I just simply had to include him because look at that model. Oh my god! Second, we have Asterion Moloch, chapter master of the Minotaurs. Asterion Moloch is perhaps the most infamous of this chapter. A warrior who has become legendary for his seemingly impossibility to kill. His reputation primarily comes from dueling Kutlak, the World Killer, who was a Necron Lord. Moloch fought the Necron evenly for a time, but would not ultimately emerge victorious in a straight-up fight, as Moloch had to stab the Necron Lord in the back when he was distracted to emerge alive. Moloch also faced a Custodian shield captain who was reportedly unsure if he could defeat him in combat. Much like Tyberos the Red Wake among the Carcharodons, Moloch's fearsome reputation is amplified by community memes and fan hype, but his feats of endurance and dueling prowess firmly cement him as a top-tier Minotaur. And finally, we have the lesser-known Captain Thule. Thule wields the Burning Blade, one of the few relics that survived the Horus Heresy without corruption by chaos. Allegedly imbued with the Emperor's power, the blade is capable of devastating enemies, though its true potency is more legendary than documented. Thule's feats include purging hostile forces with precision and leveraging the Burning Blade in high-stakes combat. So, let's compare these champions. It honestly largely comes down to Moloch and Thule. Moloch's dueling record includes fighting a Necron Lord and a Custodes, while Thule's Burning Blade adds a legendary edge that could theoretically rival the Chapter Master. Without concrete feats to fully measure the blade's worth, Asterion Moloch emerges as the strongest of the Minotaurs. He was able to defeat or at least hold off a Necron Lord who was able to almost destroy a Contemptor Dreadnought, and the most meme piece of lore, a Custodes doubted he could kill him. In off-screen lore, Moloch has been stated to have slain several renegade chapter masters, as well as orc war bosses, corsair princes, and champions of the dark gods. So I think it's pretty easy to say that Asterion Moloch is the strongest marine from the Minotaur's chapter. We now turn to the Lamenters, a chapter infamous for their tragic history. The Lamenters, the first cursed founding chapter on this list, are Blood Angel's descendants, defined by unrelenting misfortune. And when I mean misfortune, I mean they constantly get fucked in the ass. Initially seen as a success for avoiding their Primarch's worst flaws, they became infamous for their doomed crusades, hollow victories, and bitter survival. Shunned by many Astartes, they nonetheless served loyally, only to be nearly destroyed in the Babdab War for siding with Lord Huron. They were then sentenced to a penitent crusade that threw them into High Fleet Kraken's jaws. By the devastation of Baal, they were too broken to answer the call. Unlike other successors, the Lamenters have little in the way of named champions or legendary deeds, just a legacy of tragedy. In truth, their list of candidates for strongest warrior is essentially just one guy, their chapter master, Malachim Foros. Foros himself embodies everything that defines the Lamenters. Outwardly, he looks like a golden, almost statue-like figure of imperial majesty, but within his soul, he wages an unending battle against the black rage of his lineage. Among his brothers, he is revered as a figure of awe and absolute loyalty, though whispers suggest that his repeated brushes with the curse may have already begun to strip away his humanity. Malachim Foros was believed slain when the Minotaurs destroyed the Daughter of Tempests, though persistent rumors claim he survived and will someday return to his scattered chapter. Armed with a master-crafted glaive in carmine, Foros is without a question the most notable of the Lamenters chapter. Yet even here, his feats don't measure up to the titanic achievements we've seen from other chapter masters and champions. And this is where we really run into the problem of power scaling all of the chapters in 40k. Once we've moved beyond the most famous Space Marine chapters, the well of notable champions with big, demonstratable combat feats dries up pretty goddamn quick. There are simply too many chapters in Warhammer 40k that have never been given much lore, and as a result, their champions are hard to identify and even harder to power scale. With the Lamenters, we're already seeing that problem clearly. Malachim Foros is their champion, but beyond that, the chapter has no great heroes to compare to. The Exorcist chapter is next. Will we have the same problem? I hope to God not. Coming off the Lamenters, where we struggle to even name a true champion, it's almost refreshing to turn to the Exorcist. And honestly, it's not surprising that a chapter whose very initiation involves demon possession produces some strong-ass motherfuckers. These Marines are built for war against chaos at its most raw and terrifying level. Each Exorcist has stared into the abyss, let it claw at their soul, and clawed back harder. The result is a chapter not only fearless against demons, but frighteningly good at combating them. Warp spawn horrors that would break other Astartes are exactly the kind of enemies that the Exorcists exist to crush. Naturally, this has led to a roster of champions with impressive feats and reputations that stand shoulder to shoulder with some of the most decorated demon hunters in the Imperium. Now let's take a look at their candidates for strongest warrior of the Exorcist. There are 4 possible champions: Torin Vey, the Lie Eater; Ymir Vasaphon, chapter master of the Exorcist; Captain Silas Albrecht, and Malachite, a librarian of the chapter. Let's start with Torin Vey. Torin Vey, known as the Lie Eater, is one of the chapter's most infamous librarians. Vey's feats are tied directly to his mastery over demons. He defeated the demon Amon-Zarak during his own exorcism ritual, proving his willpower and psychic resilience exceeded even the most malicious warp entity. On Fadem 4, we see his greatest feat. Against the greater demon Sideas and his Kornite horde, Vey went a step further than most librarians could even imagine. He forced the demon into his own body, containing it within his soul, at the cost of becoming permanently possessed. Bound in chains by his brothers, Vey now wages an eternal war against the demon in an act of sacrifice and defiance that cements his legend among the exorcists. Next, we have Ymir Vasifon, the current chapter master of the Exorcist. He is a deeply respected leader among the chapter. His initiation trial was among the most harrowing on record. Possessed by a demon of Nurgle for 7 straight days, he endured its whispers and mockery until he finally purged it from his body. The demon smugly predicted certain events that would later come true, leaving the chapter master forever wary, but also sharpening his hatred for Nurgle's spawn. As a result, he is zealous in pursuing the Plague God's servants, turning his personal trauma into a weapon against the enemy. Talk about PTSD. Vasifon has become the first of the Exorcist command to cross the Rubicon Primaris, refusing to let his brothers undergo the surgery until he proved its survival himself. Vasifon represents the chapter at its peak, unyielding, resilient, and effective in battle. Our third candidate is Silas Alberich. He is a warrior of raw, physical dominance and one of the most celebrated figures of the chapter. Massive in stature, Alberich's legend began as a neophyte. During a mission with the Inquisitor Kazan aboard the Sundered Star, the ship was dragged into the warp, dooming all aboard. The captain survived, carrying the crippled Inquisitor into a life pod while demons tore through the vessel, a feat of both strength and unbreakable courage. Later in the Babdab War, Silas commanded the Exorcist forces where he claimed multiple victories. He even slew Chaplain Arkil Lionsmane of the Astral Claws in personal combat, cementing his name as a slayer of champions. His only blemish came when rebel ships escaped the Exorcist blockade under his watch, though his personal combat feats remain undeniable. Our fourth and final candidate is Malachite, who was a librarian of the Exorcist who achieved one of the chapter's most impressive demon-killing feats. During the Ashen War in M40, he faced a greater demon known as the Lord of Shadows. This monstrous warp entity would have been unstoppable if it were not for the sacrifice of venerable Cybra, a dreadnought of the chapter. Cybra gave his life to wound the beast, allowing Malachite the opening he needed. Driving his force spear into the demon's burning heart, Malachite banished it back to the warp in an act of sheer defiance and psychic willpower. So who is the strongest exorcist? The Exorcists field some terrifying champions, each with feats that prove their worth against demons and heretics alike. Torin Vey's eternal battle with the greater demon marks him as a tragic but badass figure. Ymir Vasifon embodies resilience, leadership, and a personal hatred for chaos, leading from the front with blade in hand. Malachite is remembered as a greater demon slayer, and Silas Alberich stands out as a physically unmatched battlefield commander and duelist. If we scale raw combat feats, Malachite and Silas Alberich emerge as the top contenders. Malachite's banishment of the Lord of Shadows is the single greatest demon-slaying feat in the chapter's history, while Alberich's combination of strength and survival against the warp and champion-slaying duels makes him the most proven warrior. But in the end, I gotta give it to Malachite's victory over a greater demon, which totally gives him the edge and best represents why the Exorcists exist, making him their strongest champion. It's now time to get to the Bird Boys' cousins, the Raptors. The Raptors don't suffer quite as much as the Lamenters when it comes to obscurity, but they're still far from the most fleshed out chapter in Warhammer 40K. As Ravenguard's successors, they inherit that Legion style of warfare: stealth, precision, sabotage, and patience. They fight smart, relying on ambushes, infiltration, and guerrilla tactics to grind down their enemies. This has earned them a reputation as one of the most pragmatic and cunning chapters in the Adeptus Astartes, a group that wins not through brute force, but through calculated execution. Still, when it comes to champions, the Raptors don't exactly have a massive pool to draw from. Unlike the Ultramarines or Blood Angels, they don't have dozens of highly detailed heroes. Instead, we can only really point to 2 figures as candidates for their strongest warrior: Chapter Master Laius Isidon and Lieutenant Serani. Each of them embodies a different aspect of the Raptor's identity: deception, precision, and leadership. And each has a few impressive feats worth looking at. Let's start with the Chapter Master, Laius Isidon. The undisputed face of the Raptors, Chapter Master Laius Isidon is among the most cunning commanders in the entire Imperium. Known as the Grim, Isidon wages a war in ways other chapters often view as dishonorable: sabotage, psychological warfare, and assassinations, but his results are undeniable. He has drawn up entire campaigns where enemies were defeated before the first shot was even fired. Thanks to his use of intelligence networks, deception, and perfectly timed strikes, Isidon's feats aren't exactly measured in single combat, but in the annihilation of entire armies through guile. In the Babdab War, he orchestrated operations that crippled enemy forces with minimal losses to his own. But unfortunately, he does lack very high-tier single combat or dueling feats. Second, we have Lieutenant Serani. Lieutenant Serani represents the Raptors' scalpel-like precision. During the Indominus Crusade, Serani and his strike force served as forward scouts for Battle Group Orpheus of Fleet Primus. In this role, he would slay a great number of Eldar Corsairs, with his ultimate accomplishment of slaying an Eldar Pirate Lord. So who is the strongest Raptor? When it comes to the Raptors, choosing their strongest Marine is more difficult than it first appears. Serani has clear combat feats, personally leading a boarding action and slaying an Eldar Pirate Lord. But Isidon is the real sticking point here. Unlike many other chapter masters, we've never actually seen him fight in single combat, which makes power scaling him pretty gosh darn hard. It would feel unfair to dismiss him solely on this technicality. Laius Isidon is spoken of with such respect and even fear by allies and enemies alike that it's difficult not to crown him as the Raptor's strongest. His genius in war, his reputation as the Grim, and the way he has repeatedly outmaneuvered his foes who outmatched his chapter in numbers and strength, all point to a Marine whose strength doesn't depend on raw brawn or flashy duels. Even without recorded combat feats, Isidon's legend cements him as the Raptor's greatest champion. Next up are the Howling Griffins, a chapter where choosing the strongest Space Marine is more straightforward than with some lesser known chapters, though it's still pretty interesting. While there are technically 2 chapter masters listed, Alvaro has far more confirmed lore, where here's Kunat Frisch is only ever mentioned by name with no feats. For all practical purposes, Alvaro is the de facto chapter master and the baseline for all the Griffins' prowess. Funnily enough, we're not even scaling these chapter masters today. What really makes this chapter stand out is their chief librarian, Mercano. He's surprisingly one of the strongest librarians in the current 40k setting, comparable to Mephiston or Ahriman in terms of raw psychic and combat feats. Mercano's first big feat is slaying the demon prince Pere Clitor during the 13th Black Crusade. He then led a campaign against the Soul Drinkers who were mistakenly believed to possess the Chaos artifact known as the Black Chalice. During these campaigns, Mercano engaged in a titanic physical and psychic duel with Sarpedon, a highly mutated psyker and formidable opponent. He broke Sarpedon's forestaff and defeated him, only to be slain by a sneak attack from Eumenes, a renegade space marine. Despite his death, Mercano's feats are nothing short of insane. Defeating a demon prince and a high-level psyker wielding a legendary artifact like the Soul Spear is definitely enough to cement him as one of the strongest marines in the current setting. I mean, the Soul Spear is described as having the output and effect comparable to that of a vortex missile, albeit more controllable. And Sarpedon used it later to kill a demon prince himself. Mercano is easily higher grade or demon tier, and for a relatively small chapter, that's a huge win, and really showcases the deadly versatility of the Howling Griffins. Next, we move to the Death Watch. Given the role as elite Xenos Hunters, this section is going to be a little bit longer than usual. Hopefully, you still got some snacks and maybe a little bit of whiskey left. There are a lot of exceptionally strong, well-documented champions to cover here. The Death Watch is a unique chapter in the Imperium, composed of elite Astartes drawn from numerous other chapters, tasked with combating Xenos threats across the galaxy. The Death Watch emphasizes versatility, adaptability, and lethal proficiency in killing alien threats, often operating as boarding teams, assassins, or strike squads in hostile territory. The thing about the Death Watch is there are so many potential candidates for the strongest Marine. So much in fact that we're going to be selecting 3 possible champions to move on to the next round. Here are the standout candidates: Ortan Cassius, Chaplain and Master of Sanctity; Ashoke, a former librarian of the Angels Sanguinius chapter; Artemis of the Mortifactors, Mathis, Watch Captain; and lastly, Zadkiel, a former Dark Angels librarian. And look at the drip on this fella. This guy knows how to dress. Someone put him on the runway, please. If I was a space racist, this is how I would dress. Let's start with Ortan Cassius, Master of Sanctity of the Ultramarines and Death Watch operative. His most notable feat comes on Kolvan, where he killed a mighty Swarmlord of High Fleet Kraken, one of the most fearsome Tyranid creatures in the galaxy. Even though the Swarmlord was later resurrected aboard the Tyranid hive ship, the kill itself puts Cassius on par with some of the greatest Space Marines in 40k, comparable to Calgar. Next, we have Ashoke, a librarian from the Angels Sanguinius chapter. He famously destroyed 3 Zonothropes' incredibly powerful psychic Tyranid bioforms, demonstrating his lethal proficiency against high-tier psychic foes. Next, we have Zadkiel, a powerful Dark Angels librarian, and now a member of the Death Watch. He is a master of both psychic might and battlefield strategy. His greatest feat occurs during the Battle of Screams, where he dueled the mysterious Cypher. For a time, he held his own against this legendary warrior, matching his every move with his own psychic power and precise strikes before ultimately being defeated. Even in defeat, this encounter showcases his skill and his ability to contend with some of the greatest champions in the known universe. Alright, so you know how I literally just said that this section's gonna be really freaking long because there's so many awesome Death Watch characters? Well, the other champions I nominated, I kind of picked them because they look sick as fuck, and then I realized that they have no feats. So yeah, that's where we are. So, Artemis of the Mortifactors and Watch Captain Mathis don't really have a lot going on for them. I mean, Artemis, for example, foiled Eldar Farseer Eldrith Uthwan, and Mathis has slain various different bugs, but that's kinda it. Not a lot of big major dueling feats like the other 3 we just discussed. Among them, if I had to pick a top spot, it goes to Ortan Cassius, thanks to his kill of a Swarmlord, an accomplishment few Marines can even claim. Zadkiel nearly bested Cypher in single combat, but was defeated, and Ashoka slew 3 Zonothropes, but I don't think 3 Zonothropes scale to a Swarmlord. All 3 of these guys will be ranked in the following video, where we will be scaling every single Marine we voted for in this video. So stay tuned for that one, guys. With the Death Watch covered, we now turn to the Crimson Fist, one of the most battle-hardened chapters in the whole galaxy. The Crimson Fists are a proud successor chapter of the Imperial Fists, known for their unyielding dedication despite suffering catastrophic losses throughout their history. Like several other successor chapters on this list, the Crimson Fists don't have a long roster of individually strong champions. The reputation is built on steadfast duty and survival against impossible odds, rather than legendary dueling feats. This, once again, makes picking the strongest Marine in the chapter a bit difficult, though there are still 2 notable candidates: Pedro Cantor, Chapter Master of the Crimson Fists, and Captain Alessio Cortez. Let's start with Papa Pedro. The current Chapter Master, Pedro Cantor, has led the Crimson Fists through countless trials, including the Orc invasion of Rin's world. While his leadership is undeniable, he gathered survivors and rebuilt the chapter in the aftermath of devastating losses. Pedro doesn't have any recorded one-on-one combat feats or duels of note, making it seem like his strength lies in his ability to command and preserve the chapter under extreme circumstances. In contrast, our second candidate, Captain Alessio Cortez, is the clear combat standout of the Crimson Fist. His greatest feats include slaying an orc warboss and his entire bodyguard, breaking through Eldar lines and completing his mission despite suffering 17 wounds, defending a breach in Fortress Maladon for 21 hours, losing his entire squad in the process, and fighting in the 6-week-long campaign on the Cardin system without supplies due to enemy fire. While Cantor excels in strategy and perseverance, Cortez's battle feats make him the strongest known Space Marine of the Crimson Fist chapter. He combines extraordinary skill and durability, proving that even a chapter not overflowing with legendary duelist Marines, true champions still exist. Next, we move on to the Grey Knights, the final chapter on our list. Thank fucking God, and their roster of elite demon hunting warriors. The Grey Knights, the Imperium's secretive elite of psychers and librarians. Tasked with combating the most dangerous threats from the warp, the Grey Knights operate largely in the shadows, striking down demons and chaos corruption that would terrify even the most battle-hardened Space Marines. Every member is a master of both martial and psychic arts, making the chapter a collection of some of the most powerful Marines in the current setting. For them, greater demons are just practice. Surviving a direct confrontation with one is just another day on the job. Once again, we're faced with an insane number of candidates. Since every Grey Knight is a psyker and a librarian, their baseline is already absurdly high. These guys make other Marines look like training dummies, and greater demons look like candy. Our candidates for this final round are Kaldor Drago, Grandmaster of the Grey Knights, Anval Thon, supposedly one of the last Perpetuals, Hyperion Bladebreaker, Garen Grow, and Brother Captain Ignatius. All 5 of these guys are pretty goddamn broken. Let's start things off with Kaldor Drago, Supreme Grandmaster of the Grey Knights, and the biggest Mary Sue I've ever seen in my life, maybe since episode 7 through 9 of Star Wars. Fuck you, Rey, you ruined Star Wars. That's a hot take right there. Hot take, people, from a falling cow. Kaldor Drago is the Grand Supreme Master of the Grey Knights, and his feats are bullshit, to put it simply. He has banished the Demon Prince Makar, defeated Mortarion, the Demon Primarch, using the Primarch's true name, slaughtered the Bloodthirster Karvoth, destroyed the fortress of the Lord of Change, Makan, and defeated 6 Sisters of Slaanesh. His durability to chaos and his ability to operate in the warp itself makes him arguably the strongest Marine in the current setting. He even burned Nurgle's gardens. What? Who created this character? Next, we have Anval Thon, and he is possibly the last of the Perpetuals. Thon's powers are so extreme, they're almost unfair. His feats include slaying bloodthirsters, keepers of secrets, vast hordes of demons, and even the ridiculously powered Kugath Plaguefather. He's immortal, near untouchable, and absurdly broken. Next, we have Hyperion Bladebreaker. This guy literally intercepted Angron's Black Blade mid-swing with pure psychic energy. He cracked it and then shattered it, although the attempt rendered him unconscious. But that single act is still a goddamn great feat. Then we have Garen Grow, wielder of the Demon Sword, Blade of Antwyr, which can't be destroyed and is itself a psychic adversary. Garen defeated a Keeper of Secrets, drew with the Greater Demon Skulltaker, and bested the Slaaneshi Demon Mask, all while fighting the sword's own will. What? And then finally, we have Ignatius, who, surprise surprise, has achieved a long list of accomplishments as well, including banishing a Demon Prince of Nurgle for over 1,000 years, defeating the Demon Prince Ustarath, and ending several witch cults. He is truly impressive, but we won't be including him in the final ranking cause he's dead. So we have an absolutely insane showing from all 4 of these Marines, or I guess 5, but we're not counting Ignatius because he's dead. So who is the strongest Grey Knight? And do I even need to ask this question? It's Kaldor Drago, defeating greater demons in the warp, carving up Mortarion with his knowledge of the Primarch's true name, and literally burning Nurgle's gardens? Come on, Broken doesn't even begin to cover it. Anvalthon, Hyperion, and Garen Grow will all be featured in the next video though, because ranking all these psychic monsters is going to be ridiculously fun. I know it's not exactly fair, but I'm a cow, so I'm always right, and thus I'm gonna do it anyways. And that does it for this video. Another long one, and I apologize. But someone's gotta do artistic power scaling, so you know me, a fallen cow's gonna step up. Before moving on, let's recap all the champions from start to finish, including the runner-ups for the follow-up video. So, for the Dark Angels, we have Azrael, the Chapter Master of the Unforgiven. For the White Scars, we have Corsaro Khan, the Hunt Master. For the Space Wolves, we have the Old Wolf, Logan Grimnar. For the Imperial Fists, we have First Company Captain, Darneth Lysander. For the Blood Angels, we have Chief Librarian, Mephiston. For the Iron Hands, we have Lydric Noxon. For the Ultramarines, we have Chapter Master Marneus Calgar. For the Salamanders, we have Vulcan Heastan. For the Raven Guard, we have Kayvon Shrike. For the Blood Ravens, we have Chapter Master Gabriel Angelos. For the Flesh Terrors, we have Chapter Master Gabriel Seth. For the Black Templars, we have High Marshal Helbrecht. For the Carcharodons, we have Tyberos the Red Wake. For the Minotaurs, we have Asterion Moloch. For the Lamenters, we have Malachim Phoros. For the Exorcists, we have Librarian Malachite. For the Raptors, we have Chapter Master Laius Isidon the Grim. For the Howling Griffins, we have Chief Librarian Mercano. For the Death Watch, we have one top champion, Orton Cassius. For the Crimson Fists, we have Alessio Cortez. And for the Grey Knights, we have Caldor Drago. Then, for the runner-ups, we have Ragnar Blackmane, Dante, Master of the Blood, Demetrian Titus, Cato Sicarius, Varro Tigurius, Ashok, Zadkiel, Anvalthon, Hyperion, and Garen Grow, for a total of 9 runner-ups, with our 21 normal champions. That brings us to 30 total champions selected to move on to the next round. Once again, I will be doing a poll for the Chaos Warbands, similar to this video. If you would like to vote, I will be putting links in the description in this video, the comments, and in a post. So you will have 3 different ways to find the link to vote for your favorite Chaos Warbands. This will all end with the rankings of every single champion I've picked in both videos to discover who is the single strongest Space Marine in Warhammer 40K. If you want another version covering more Loyalist chapters, let me know here in the comments. And if this video gets 1,000 likes and 250 comments in 1 week, I will actually make a follow-up video. So hypothetically, if that happened, comment which chapters you would like to see. Before we get to the closing part of this video, let's run a fun stat line of the 30 Marines we picked. 12 ended up being Chapter Masters, 9 were Chief Librarians or Librarians in general, 7 Captains or Officers, 1 Chaplain, and 1 Forge Master. Quite the spread. Honestly, I expected more Chapter Masters, but hey, that's kinda sick. This video was a lot of fun to make, for a lot of fun reasons. I actually learned so much about the setting. First off, the 40k setting is so absolutely filled with Psychers and Librarians, I had no idea there were so gosh darn many of them. You have characters like Thon, Mercano, or Tigurius who can rip through greater demons, something that is hard for most characters. This brings me to my second point, which is something of a revelation. I originally believed that 30k Marines were vastly superior to 40k. You know, they have Sigismund, Sevatar, Nasir Amit, Naikoa Shirokin, Corswain, and on and on and on. But this was partially due to a lack of detailed 40k lore knowledge on my part. This research taught me a lot about 40k lore in general, since I'm a big 30k head. But it also reveals that I'm not so sure 30k is inherently superior to 40k. I mean, Sigismund is still ridiculously overpowered, being able to counter a demon Primarch like Fulgrim and kill a vast number of corrupted Marines. But seeing what the 40k Marines have backing makes me second guess my certainty. I know I've been throwing a ton of video ideas out there, but ultimately I plan on doing a full-scale 30k versus 40k Marines comparison. One day, oh one day, just gotta get through a gazillion videos first. Before we wrap this up, a huge shout out to my Patreon and YouTube membership subscribers. You guys keep this channel going and I couldn't do it without you. Shout out Ryania Basket, Omar, Matadori or Mike, Soft Use, William Strong, and Keydri. I have no idea if I said that last one right or wrong, so if I didn't, correct me please. Consider joining either service, Patreon, or YouTube memberships. It really supports me as a creator and really motivates me to keep pumping out that content. For example, right now on my Patreon, me and my subscribers were talking future video content, and the concept of Sukuna entering the 40K universe came up, and now I think I'm gonna do it. So if you guys want to contribute to future projects, go check out my Patreon or YouTube memberships. Following this video, we'll be diving into could Malcador defeat a Primarch? So stay tuned as always. For the rest of this month, regardless of what tier you purchase, you will receive a shoutout. Also, my Discord is finally here, so go join the Barnyard. There is a server dedicated solely to power scaling. Literally the best server ever, fellas. Let's start chatting. For the remainder of the month, the schedule will be the Unification Wars, how powerful is the Dark King, and Sukuna enters the 40K universe. I am very excited for all these videos, and I hope you guys are too. Before finishing, I want to just say this video was so fun to write, and I hope you guys really enjoyed it. There was so much effort put into it, so please leave a like, subscribe if you haven't, and join the cow herd. Stay milked, fellas and ladies, and I'll see ya in the next Powerscaling Peeps episode.